Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 2020 Geosteering World Cup Final. We're here with Shane Peterson, my co-host for the morning. Hey, Shane.
Hey, how you guys doing today?
Shane was able to join us as our co-host from last week. Drew actually had some real-world responsibilities jump in. So Shane jumped in a pinch and is going to help us out here, help keep us entertained and informed. Now, Shane, we have 50 of the best geosteers in the world competing for the World Cup final. Using our simulator, which I think you had a chance to look at a little bit before. Tell us a little bit about your level of excitement heading into a World Cup final for your chosen profession.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this. So I was looking through the names, and there's a lot of people I recognize. I know some of them personally, used to work with them. Really, really good people. I was looking at some of the other areas. This is going to be pretty exciting. What the first basin that we're going to be at is it going to be in Siberia?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, no, that'll be the second. So the first one is going to be Permian.
Yeah. Oh, even better. Yeah.
Something a little bit closer. Absolutely. Something a little bit closer to my heart. But we have a real good show put together. We have some great interviews as you guys have looked through the program. You also might notice that there's some of the results in there from the semifinals. So in the semifinals, we had over 230 people, 230 wells that were drilled in each round. So a total of over 460 wells, over 5 million foot of virtual hole was made. And I think a good time was had by all, as well as I think everybody got to learn a little bit. So I think it was a great experience, and hopefully this final lives up to being the cherry on top of the whole project that we expect it to be. Let's see.
Yeah, that's a lot of footage.
There we go. Okay, so as we move into this today, you'll also notice in there's some bios at the back. So if you're interested in all of the different competitors in the finals, everybody who got back to us with a little bit of information about themselves, that's there in the back. You can also see the scores for the top 100 globally. And so you'll see that we actually had the top 4 were all from the European region. And they scored there were some pretty amazing scores there. So the rest of the regions are going to have to pick up the pace if they want to try to take that World Cup home to their region.
Yeah, this should be interesting. I'm excited to see how everybody's going to fare out this time. There's looks like there's a lot of good competition going on here. So,
yeah. Now, Shane, when you were coming in, and you started out in Bakersfield, right?
That is correct. Yes, I started out in Kern River, actually.
So when you were first told that you were going to be doing something called geosteering, what was the training like for something like that at that point?
You know, there wasn't a program like this, I can tell you that much. We used to use this amazingly built Excel spreadsheet, and we would import data. We'd get that LAS file, and we'd literally have to copy and paste. You know, you had a senior geologist that you'd call if you had any questions, and that was it, man. It was by the seat of your pants. If this was around back then, it'd be a completely different story on the learning curve, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, if I was talking about when I first learned, I was up on a rig in North Dakota, and we were using one of the legacy software packages that's out there as well. And he was playing Candy Crush. I'll remember this to my dying day. And he just handed me this software, which I didn't have any concept of what the software was doing or even what our responsibility was. I'd been mudlogging for 3 months, and then they promoted me. And they put me with this guy, and he sits over in his big old chair, and he's spinning around. And I turn around to ask him a question. He just looks up at me, complete deadpan. And this man is about 340 pounds. He's a giant. And he looks at me and he says, "Candy ain't going to crush itself." And then I was back to steering a live well, right? He's looking over my shoulder to make sure I don't hose it too much. But at the same time, it is a bit intimidating, shall we say. So
yeah, that kind of dates you right there when you talk about Candy Crush. I don't think that's even a game people play anymore. So
I thought so, but I think we may have, with telling that story in the last run, we may have started a renaissance, because I had one of our competitors say that he was actually playing it with his daughter now.
No, so that's nice. Yeah, bringing it back.
Maybe
I was gonna say, I'll never forget being out on the rig. Those guys were pretty tough on the young kids, you know. It was, but you know, even though they were tough on you, a lot of the directional drillers who had so much experience would even be like, "Hey, geologist, this is what I'm seeing. Since you're new, here's what I'm going to tell you from what I've learned." So it was quite helpful back in the day.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Like it was definitely a tough road to hoe, but I think it's almost like a rite of passage, right? Like everybody's got their story of this one time a surly directional driller really went off on him at 3 a.m, or an engineer, and you know you tough it out and you survive. Now, what I kind of see going forward is instead of just of actually learning on a well that's drilling, you know, a $6-8 million well that's actually drilling, or just looking at data that's already been steered and doing a back steer where there's no pressure. In fact, you can just look at the TD point and work your way back. We have StarSim, which is the simulator that's working in the back of the World Cup. This allows you to actually simulate real drilling conditions where data is coming in and you're drilling the well where you want to drill it, for better or worse. Something like that, I think, how would that, if you were setting up a geosteering team, right, and you had a tool like this to train people that were either new to, you know, fresh out of college, interns, or a situation where maybe, you know, you have seasoned asset geos who are taking over some responsibilities of geosteering. How would something like this play into that for you?
Oh, this would be a great tool, to be honest with you. I'm glad that you guys have done this. I know that my previous company, we were trying to do that on our own, and it was quite tough. But this is going to be really helpful because, you know, when you're drilling a $6, $8, $10 million well, it's kind of hands up in the air, you know. I've definitely had a few mishaps in my days. Luckily, that was back in the valley, so the well was only $1 million, not 10 million. But you know, if I would have had a simulation like this, I would have been able to learn a lot quicker without making those mistakes. With that said, there's always bound to be interpretation errors and whatnot because it's geology. Let's be realistic.
Right.
It's a bunch of arm waving. But you know, I think this really helps. But the other good thing about this is that you can also use it to help directional drillers, MWD, the DSMs, the DSRs, the drill site representatives, because if they kind of had a better idea of what you were actually doing, then they might understand the changes that you're making, the amount of downlinks you're having the DDs go through and things of that nature. I noticed once we started all working in one remote spot, it was really nice because I could just say, hey, come over here and take a look. This is why I'm doing this. So I think this is going to help everybody all around in the industry, not just geologists that are fresh out of college or seasoned asset geologists. It's going to help everybody.
Yeah, and on top of that, I think outside of just like training or practice, like one of the things that I'm pretty excited about is, you know, as somebody on the service company side, right, we're working for an IT vendor, but also working with a lot of operators. The question I get asked a lot is, who's the best geosteerer? Right. And I'm like, well, obviously there's so many components that go into that. Are you a good communicator? Do you have a steady hand? But there's also can you steer a well? Do you know the geology of a different area? And so a competition like this, though it's mostly for fun, it has the advantage of letting us test ourselves and giving some sort of empirical number associated with it. But it also allows you to familiarize yourself with other basins. Like you're going to drill in a basin you've never drilled in before. Let's set something up.
Yeah, and I think that's great because having limited knowledge on a basin and then being introduced into this type of atmosphere, I think it really kind of shows or sets you apart from some of the other people if you can actually execute very well.
For sure. Now, our first well today, our first unconventional, if you will, is as I set that up, our first unconventional day is going to be in Permian, which is often known as the king of the U.S. basins. Now, we have Mr. Permian Basin Experience himself, Troy Tittlemeyer, here to give us kind of the 10,000-foot view on the area. Troy, are you there?
Yes, sir. Let's turn on my photos.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make you the presenter here so you can share your screen.
Okay.
Glad to have you, Troy.
Likewise, man. Good to see you, Shane. Some great comments there in the beginning that puts this all in perspective. I couldn't agree more that there's an opportunity for everybody that's watching this for sure. Okay.
Got it.
Right on. Well, let's first just begin with understanding where we're at in the world. We're talking North America. We're talking the most prolific oil and gas unconventional basin in the world, the Permian Basin, and that takes up southeast New Mexico and West Texas, as I spent almost 6 years in the heart of that thing, feeling its heartbeat, smelling the crude, and being a part of that. And you know, as a geologist, it was very challenging to understand the structural complexity through time that set up the opportunity for this basin to be created. And just for starters, you have a major subduction zone that's setting up the Precambrian, that's setting up the rest of this history, and it's going northwest, and it's setting up this kind of sag in the basin. And that's when we start seeing it from Precambrian to present. We see this whole, but there was probably about 5 or 6 other major events that start cutting through in different directions. And the geologic, the convergent vectors through time are rotating. I mean, it's such a fascinating and complex basin. And that's why it is so good. That's why it is so prolific. If there wasn't geologic complexity, there probably is not going to be that much resource to be had. It would just be fun to go look at. This is all happening in the subsurface. It is an incredible story. And right now, there's 2 fundamentally different ways to look at this. You can look at it as purely sedimentological, as the hole has filled from the edges over geologic time. And now we have this new concept that you're looking at chemical muds from via mud volcanism, which is a new cutting edge geologic concept. So now we have 2 models to work with to fill this basin up and to find these reservoirs. And so the geologists you're working for that are trying to unlock this thing as they're drilling 7,500 feet laterally in this target, there's so much going on, and all those little subtle differences that are happening at the drill bit that you're feeling and you're seeing are real. Now, how is it going to help you from keeping the hole from caving in and making sure you're not under balance and all those other things that everything that has to do with keeping this hole stable and keeping this well economic? You got to drill it fast. You got to drill it in the spot you want it. So let's talk about that for a second, because the Permian, as we all know, is completely stacked. Dylan or Shane, you got anything before I dive in?
Nothing.
I just know. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Shane.
I was going to say nothing on my end. It's a complex basin, that's for sure.
It's complex, and the thing that is amazing to me, because I came to the Permian a little bit later in my career, when I'd already drilled. I'd already spent a bunch of time in the Anadarko Basin, in the Bakken, up in northern Utah. And when I got down there, I'm used to, maybe there's 1 or 2 benches that we target. And I remember asking somebody when I first got to Midland, I'm like, how many benches do you guys target? And I think the number was like 12 or 13. And it was just so different than anything I'd ever even contemplated before. It was so impressive.
Yeah, to say the least, man. So that's a perfect segue, exactly what we're talking about here. I mean, the stacked up strat column, you have several benches between each of these lithologies or these major distinctions in the geologic rock record that we use with fossils, biostratigraphy, everything that helps us to kind of figure out time. Geologic time through this is very, very important. But when you break that up and you actually dive in, like the Wolf Camp, I mean, you could see we have so many different benches based on, these signatures of gamma ray and resistivity and other things we can use to help us in the vertical section to maybe have an idea of, okay, you have high pore pressure at this kind of gamma ray, this kind of resistivity, this kind of parameters, and the way we can control that as we go laterally. Can that help us to stay in the overpressured zone, or when we get out of it, vice versa? We know the shales and the clays drill faster than the silts and the carbonates. So you want to drill this thing fast, but you want to stay in zone. We'll talk about that in a bit, but you can see it's incredible how many benches you have. It's tight. It's incredible accuracy to stay in zone, and these things are changing by like a football field. Call it 2 football fields. You could see drastic changes in this. So being on the front lines of that drill bit, helping to deliver that interpretation of what's changing and how it could affect the drilling. How could we go faster? How could we limit caving? How could we make a real positive impact on keeping this whole economic? It's exciting to be a geosteer, no question about it. These are some fun facts. It gets really here's a structural kind of look at the Permian Basin across IHS's data. And really what we're talking about now is getting back into this structural complexity. If you're landing a well, you're in basinal facies, you're going to have this really high change vertically along your target as you go horizontal in this deliverable, kind of silty, good porosity, good permeability versus the clays that have the TOC, that have the kerogen specifically in there that's making this system work. You're landing in that. There's a lot of change happening in that. You're in the basin. Now you got to deal with structure. And that's what this is kind of hinting at. And this is where it gets really, really complicated, especially as the driller, as the person who's on the drill bit. So when you cross a fault and you're seeing this vertical change, you're seeing a facies change, you're seeing this response in reservoir change, and you're making a prediction of, am I high or am I low now? How am I going to adjust to the change that just happened on this we didn't see? Now it's there. We know it's there because this technology is incredible at picking things up like that. It just happened. How are you going to respond to that? Well, in my opinion, if the system is changing on a football field scale, or call it 2 football field scale, relax. Don't do knee-jerk reactions in this, because first you got to make sure that whatever you just crossed into, is it going to make the drilling underbalance? Is it going to change something drastically where the driller absolutely needs to know immediately what to expect? Start taking that into consideration before you're actually moving up and down and trying to get back in zone. It could come back. The structural complexity is your friend and your enemy. And then I think that's about it. I mean, this is kind of an idea of the source rock, or the rocks that we're drilling into. Again, I think for speed, you want to be in those clays, the shales. You do want to get some carbonate in there. You do want to get some silicates in there. And one thing that's kind of obvious is where you have major lithology change. So if you're drilling clays and all of a sudden you're in this carbonate, I would think you want to get back into at least the contact between that carbonate block and the clays and the silts and this, the rock and target you're drilling in. If you're at that facies boundary and that major change, you're probably going to find some good porosity and permeability there at least, and get yourself back on depth, get yourself back kind of understanding where you are and how you want to keep moving forward in this thing.
So. Yeah. I like the fact there's nothing that says West Texas like using football fields as the rock hammer to determine scale by, right? Love it. And what he said right there, I'm not saying that is some real good advice, but sometimes when you hit a fault, it's not the you don't want to overreact, right? Because usually faults don't always just happen independent. If there's enough pressure there, if there's enough stress to make a fault, there can be more than one. So something to keep in mind as we drill through today. Now, Troy, you've been a personality in West Texas and in Midland in particular for a bit now. But then you started a podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about that before you head out?
Yeah, appreciate the opportunity, man. We created this podcast knowing that there was some serious innovation coming, as we were taught right away from Dr. Charles Sternbach of the AAPG. He came into Midland and said, listen, innovation is born in the Permian Basin. The stresses that are happening economically, there was no secret. It was very hard to make a lot of money at the prices, how the expensive the wells were. And he goes, wait for it, because innovation and the 100-year history of the Permian Basin, it happens. It's born here. This is where it happens. And we will progress. We will respond to the pressure and these stresses. And so we built the PBE podcast to do that. We've said we are going to go out and find this innovation. We're going to go talk to the people and understand what are the problems. That ultimately led to the journey I'm on now with the Research Institute with MagmaChem, a completely different way to look at the rocks. That's where innovation for me is going to happen. A completely new perspective, a completely new idea of how these rocks put themselves together is drastically going to change the technology that we use and the performance that we have at each individual well. So today is innovation, tomorrow is application, and we're going to see these responses very quickly.
Now, Troy, I've listened to your podcast and I'm familiar with some of your work, but for those of the audience who maybe aren't, how can they go ahead and find the Permian Basin Experience podcast, and how can they stay abreast of your other work?
Right on, man. Yeah. So you got Spotify, iTunes, you got the website, you got YouTube. We put our shows out almost immediately when they're done. We do some live shows every now and then. We got bigger presence in LinkedIn than any other social media platform. And when we're talking about in the PBE podcast, all these new geologic concepts, like, a whole new way to make hydrocarbon on this planet relative to the conventional model, called something serpentinization. That's the stuff that's coming from the MagmaChem Research Institute, and that you can find at magmachemri.org. We have webinars. We have all this information that's completely free at the website to discuss these new geologic concepts that are in context. We're looking at the outcrop of serpentinite, of talc, and we're finding diamondoids. We're finding kerogen. We find that this process is much bigger than we originally thought. So if that's true, how can it change the way we think about these reservoirs at the drill bit? That's what we're focusing on as a whole. And so both of my companies are doing that from two different ways. PBE, entertainment. And we're talking to Dr. Scott Tinker today from the BEG. We're going to have a podcast with him. It's going to be outstanding. Changing the economics of the world, providing efficient energy to the world. He's just on the front lines of that with his documentaries. And then MagmaChem is the technical support, the no BS, absolute dry science, down to the nitty-gritty details, supporting these ideas, and we're delivering that to everyone we know.
All right. Well, thank you very much for all that information, for giving us the overview on the basin that we're going to be challenged with first today, and we look forward to seeing where you go next. Thank you, Troy.
Right on, man. Thank you.
Cheers.
Awesome, Troy. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. That was a great overview, man. Thank you.
Man.
And now, next up, let's bring Jackie Palmer and Sarah Reagan on from GeoVision.
Hey,
Jackie,
Dylan.
Sarah, are you there?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so GeoVision is the sponsor of this pregame show, and also, of course, the sponsor at the user meeting. And we're here with Jackie Palmer, who is the owner of GeoVision, and Sarah Reagan, who is her ops manager and 2020 World Cup finalist. Now, Sarah, yesterday I was just, as I do as Southwest Region Manager, I was just kind of scrolling through LinkedIn, and I saw something that I'd like to share with everybody here if they didn't get a chance to see it themselves. Let me go ahead and share my screen here again. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hit play here. And of course, everybody can see this on LinkedIn.
We're here today with Sarah Reagan after the 2020 Roshi World Cup semifinal. Moving on. Sarah, how do you feel today?
Oh, I feel so great. Trained so hard. Our defense was excellent. Team GeoVision, we got a lot of heart. The real MVP, right?
All right.
That is great.
I won't lie. I may have watched it 40 to 50 times yesterday, and it made my day. Now, Sarah, how did that whole thing come about? Did you see it coming? Was this just a blindside by Jackie and the team there?
I was actually a willing participant. I was blindsided by the temperature of the Gatorade. Somebody put some ice in there, and then it sat out overnight when it was like 50 degrees. So it was a little chilly.
What was your pup's name there?
That's Chaos, and he's actually sitting next to me now. Fun fact: today is his 7th birthday.
Oh, okay.
Chaos.
Happy birthday. So this would make you the master of chaos then, I guess, huh?
Absolutely.
And I think some people want to know, what color is that pup now?
He is back to his normal color. He is black and white.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Well, it looks like he and you are both good sports. Now, as somebody who was able to advance from the semifinals, putting you in the top 20% of all of the North American region, what was something that helped you in the semifinals and something you think might help you here in the finals?
So I guess I made kind of small changes. You know, if you're kind of coming out of zone, don't, you know, you can do crazy dog legs in this trainer, but you know, still keep it pretty gentle. Obviously, if there's like 100-foot fault, you're gonna have to make something a little more steeper, shallower. But you know, just keep at it like you normally would. You know, sometimes you just think that old saying, I'll just see what it does on the next survey.
Or as I would say, can we rotate and find out what's going to happen next? Was what I always heard on my rig. I was like,
let's just rotate it out. We're good.
So this is obviously a little bit shorter than some. Now, Jackie, I know that with you and your team there, you really stress practice, right? Practice, so that when, you know, I guess you're not Allen Iverson, right? So that when the show goes live and the game is for real, you guys are ready. How does something like this and what you've experienced through this World Cup event help you with that as far as your actual team there?
Well, I mean, the simulator definitely helps you with practice. Obviously, that's, you know, it's you know, main use, I guess. But also, you know, everyone's a competitor today. They're the best. You know, they have a lot of talent. But it doesn't matter how much talent you have when you put the fault in the wrong place, which some people might have done on the North American semifinals, certain people. So that's where the practice comes important, because the rocks like to trick you. I don't know why they do that, but you can have all the talent in the world. If you don't practice, you won't know the simulator. You won't, you know, it won't be instinct the way it is when you do a lot of trials. So.
Yeah, one of the things they always say in basketball and probably football as well is that, hard work trumps talent when talent doesn't work hard. So, you know, train. Hopefully everybody has had a chance to look at those image logs that were coming in. I know in the Woodford, it was a little bit difficult because the scale jumped so far from the Sycamore to the Woodford. It goes from like 80 to 700. But in the Permian, it's not quite that extreme. But a great way to be able to identify faults is when you see that. I mean, you'll see the drill break in the ROP, but you'll also see that that line in the image log that just shows you that you've jumped formations. So hopefully that will be something that people will find useful. If there happens to be any faults in the projects today, I wouldn't know. Complete mystery to me.
So you didn't make this one?
I did, yeah. But that's a secret, so we'll just not share that with anybody. So thinking about like micro versus macro strategies here, Jackie, can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so just the last time that we talked, you know, I gave what I thought were good tips on how to steer, like, you know, little things that make a big difference, like your scales and things like that. But, you know, the macro part of steering, you know, when I was steering, when I was in the competition last week, you know, I didn't realize exactly. Of course I realize, you know, I'm in this industry, but geologists do so much, you know, somehow the narrative has been like, oh, frack it, you know, we'll be fine. Geologists, man, we have to look at everything, every well drilled in the area, you know, micro processes of the earth, you know, and then decide which parts of that to use while drilling, you know. So we've done this planning phase, now we're doing this drilling phase, and then afterwards we have to study the well and compare it to other completions. Man, geologists, again, somehow we've just become known as like rock lickers or whatever, but we do so much. I don't know, something about the simulator and being in the competition last time, it just really made me think about it. So watch macro trends, I guess.
We have been known to lick a few rocks, right? So not completely out of bounds there. Okay, well, I'm sure Sarah's got to run because she's got to get logged in, strapped into her rig and ready to rock and roll here in the final. I'd like to transition over here now and start showing what we're going to be doing today and talk a little bit about some of the finalists. Jackie, if you want to hang on with us here and chime in as you want, feel free.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to go back over here to my handy dandy PowerPoint. Hopefully, come on PowerPoint, work with me here. Okay, all right. So our first well today is going to be a wolf camp, and this is what everybody should see. So you're going to have obviously, we have set the interpretation to be able, and by the way, at this point, everybody should be logged in. If you're not logged in and not logged into your unconventional round one project, please do so. If you have problems, make sure that you it might even be already too late, but make sure that you please reach out to worldcup@roji.com, and they'll do their best to try to get you back up and going. But when you logged in, you should see something like this. So up here at the top, you'll see that you have your total gamma, and we have a dynamic gamma log. So this is kind of like the Ford model method that will be generating that log data based on your interpretation. And ROP is right here. And remember, 25% of your success score comes from there. Your azimuthal gamma, this is a 4-channel azimuthal. And so, so you have your up, down, left, right. And so at the end of the day, we're going to be getting data pushes every 75 seconds. So it's 2 minutes in the semifinals. But the feedback that we got was people didn't like the 200-foot pushes. They'd rather have shorter or faster 100-foot stands. So that's what we went with. So it's 75 seconds. And you should probably consider that you really have about a minute, because from the time, there's obviously a server somewhere that's running a script that's looking at your interpretations and your target line, moving things around and generating that data for you and sending it out to you. So that there's what we call a dark space, and it's usually only about 5 seconds, but to be safe, I'd have my target line in position about 60 seconds after you got your last data set. Everybody won't get the data at the same time because we actually have multiple different servers running this to make it run as efficiently and as fast as possible. So if you happen to look on my screen and you see that wells are already moving forward and you haven't seen your data yet, it's because you're on a different server, but your time is based on your server. So you'll still get that 75 seconds. Anyway, this azimuthal gamma, this is, as we talked about, as far as fault identification, it's wonderful. It's also a great tool for determining whether you're cutting up or down to strata. And then this dynamic azimuthal, this is going to be based on your interpretation. So if your interpretation happens to be perfect, your geosteering interpretation, like what we're seeing right here, your dynamic azimuthal and your azimuthal should be identical. Now, I know, Shane, I know that you've worked a little bit with azimuthal gamma at some of your previous employers. Do you have any tips to add as far as things that people can do to make it more effective and efficient for them?
One of the things that we used to do with the azimuthal is we'd take that up down and we'd actually shade it, and then use different colors to kind of give us an indication of whether we were going up or down. That was something that I always found to be pretty helpful. There's other people that were running scripts that would color things in a little bit different manner. There's lots of things you can do. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that most of the people that are going to be participating in this are pretty high up there, and they probably could give me more tips than I could give them.
Yeah, I'm going to become known as like the scale or color person, but yeah, definitely change the scale to make it obvious if you're going up or down. That's what we do too. Really use up down more than 16 different channels.
Yeah. Well, in this case, they're not going to have the individual up down logs. They're actually only getting the image logs. So really, the key is going to be to look for those smiles, look for those frowns, understand what that means, and really look for those faults. Now, the way that the script is set up, that everybody will be running on this first well, you're going to be coming in and you're going to be looking at a dog leg of 15. There's a maximum of 15 coming into the curve. As soon as you hit 87-degree inclination, that will change, and now you're officially in the lateral, and you'll be at 4 degrees maximum. So no matter what you put that target line at, you will not be able to exceed those values. The script will actually stop you. Another thing to make sure of, and this is really important, is that there is a projection to bit option that starts to your 2020.3 is added, right? It's an amazing feature when you're drilling because you're able to actually use that PTB information to steer with. However, if you turn that on, it will actually mess up the way that the script runs. It will mess up and not put the wellbore where you want it to go. Right. So this is obviously an issue for multiple reasons. So please do not use the projection to bit. All right. So as we're coming into getting ready to go here, you'll see that there is a structure map here. Now, this structure map is pure structure. In fact, I don't even know that we have too much information about this area. We don't have any seismic of the 2 or 3D variety. We just had some wells in the area and we were able to drill this real nice, smooth structure map. but this is the World Cup final. So Shane, do you think that structure is going to be quite as smooth as we see there?
Probably not. Let's be realistic.
Yeah, and though I can tell you that though I have really had my heart set on adding debris flows and develop some really beautiful debris flow interpretations with limestones coming and going from 30-foot thick to completely pinched out, which is possible. That is not the case. There will be no thickness changes in the final. So everybody can breathe a sigh of relief there. We kind of came to the conclusion that 75 seconds was just not enough to steer, tell your directional driller where to go, and model thickness change. So
I think that was a good idea. I mean, let's be realistic. If we've all drilled real time through here, and it's kind of a hassle when you have those debris flows coming in and out.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably, that's the most difficult thing about drilling in the Permian frequently, is that there could be a debris flow that you never saw coming, and then all of a sudden you drop from drilling 280, 300 foot an hour to about 15, 20, and then you're like, okay, do we go up? Do we go down? Where do we go? We're in a carbonate. We see nothing, and it can be nerve-wracking. You know, you gotta have that steady hand.
Drill another stand.
Yep. Yeah, drill another stand, as Sarah just told us, right? Okay. All right. So we're going to be coming up here. I'm actually in contact with my team here, just making sure that we're going to be good for the first data push. Okay. Checking in with the our own personal Wizard of Oz here, the man behind the curtain, Igor Kubayev. He's the one who actually starts all the scripts on all the different machines and makes sure that everything's running well for everybody. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and bring my star steer over here for everybody to see. So you can see that right now we have all 50 competitors and actually 2 robots now. We got a little bit of a robot Royal Rumble. So even though C4PO didn't qualify, he had a personal challenge thrown down to him by another robot named Rosie. Have you ever seen the Jetsons? That's Rosie. And she said she wanted a piece. And so who were we to say no? So you'll actually see there's C4PO and Rosie will be in here as well. You can also see that we've color coded and named each. So each well is color coded by the region that the person is coming from. And the other thing that you'll see is that the well is actually the name of the person drilling the well. So we won't necessarily turn it on early, but of course I can turn on everybody's. Looks like Kevin just turned his on. Kevin Strode right there. So we're going to go ahead and leave those off for now, just so we can kind of not have too much excitement. But basically everybody's going to be starting out right here. You'll have your grid. This is where your score will start counting, and this is where it will stop counting. So looks like Igor is ready. Everybody should be logged in. Bill, I'm sorry, I've mispronounced your name now and misspelled it. I guess I'll owe you a beer for that one. So make me eat my words and bring home this trophy. So as we start to bring it in here, we are just about ready to go. Everybody should be have all their cards ready to roll and everything, all the drillers in position. Now, Jackie, any last words for our competitors here before they start rotating along?
No, just good luck. Have fun. You know, let's get this done. I'm pumped. You guys should be excited.
Heck yeah.
Just real quick, Hassan wanted to just wanted an update on the actual timing of the data push again. Is it, you said it was every 75 seconds?
Yes, it'll be every 75 seconds. So once again, it'll probably be, like I said, were it me, I'd probably just be thinking about a minute. I know some people have actually set timers, like set their phones down and just say every 60 seconds. So from the time that you see the data come in, if you were to say, I only have 60 seconds, you'll always be safe. If you go for the full 75, what you might find is that any changes you make at that last part are overwritten as that new survey data pushes. So if you find that your data is getting overwritten, maybe just try to make the decisions a little bit quicker. And we got 1 minute here before we're actually going to start. But the one thing that I'm always a big fan of in this is the worst thing that can happen is that your target line gets behind you, right? or you move the target line up above. So I always like try to keep the target line ahead and on trend, because I mean, what happens if my computer crashes? Right? Like, we're going to drill where that target line is. And if that target line is in the wrong place, it's still going to drill that target line. So put it up ahead just to be safe in case, power goes out at your place or something like that. And that'll give it a trend to keep going on. Keep an eye out for any changes that happen in the image logs. Keep an eye out for what's going on with the geosteering. Okay, we're just getting ready. It looks like we need about 1 more minute.
Well, if we just
All right,
need some
everybody-
filler conversation, someone asked about Sarah's dog, or was concerned about him, and you guys should really be concerned with me when the NFL finds out I took their soundbite for a video.
For sure. And oh, by the way, make sure everybody should have their target lines in position for their first data push at this point. Okay, we have about in 30 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and give the signal. So everybody, this is your last chance to move that target line before you get your first 100-foot data push at a maximum dog leg of 15. So get it in position. All right. Everybody, you got about 10 seconds. Igor, you can go ahead and start the engines. Get those diesels running. Igor, push that data.
Here we go.
All right. And so we're watching it over here. You can see that we have the different colors here. So red is the representative of, so it looks like everybody's been pretty consistent so far. Oh, we're starting to get a little bit of variation early here. A little bit of variation right off the beginning. Kevin, I'm going to go ahead and turn off your label there. Where's Kevin? Strode, Mr. Strode. Now, as you start to bring it into landing, sometimes landing can be real easy, and other times maybe not quite as easy. So keep your eyes peeled. There we go. As we zoom in here, we can start to see the variation. So the wells that are red, those are North American wells. Blue, these are the European ones. The greenish color, this is the Middle East. And then the kind of the gray, that's Latin America. So we have 30 people from North America. We have 10 people from Europe. 6 finalists are from the Middle East and 4 from Latin America. So that was based on 20% of the semifinalists.
This is pretty interesting so far. You noticed a lot of the North American people seem like they're coming up rather than going down compared to Latin America and the Middle East. So and the blues in there. Yeah, this is I guess there's a pretty good chunk. Yeah, this will be good.
Now we have a couple of mystery competitors, and the reality of our industry is that a lot of time there's what's the word I'm looking for? There's give me the word here. A lot of stuff that we do has to be a secret, right? It's trade secrets to our company. It's data that belongs to our company. And sometimes to one level or another, even we belong to our company. And so we have a couple of competitors who are in as basically mystery nights. So those of you who are George R. R. Martin fans might be familiar with some of the mystery night stories that he's told. So we have mystery and enigma in here. Now, keep in mind, these are absolutely real people, but just because they did want to they did want to be able to compete anonymously, and they did qualify. So you'll see that they're in here. Looks like we just got our second data push. We're starting to see some variety. Oh my goodness.
Well, yeah, it looks like there's some consistency here, so this is kind of interesting. And you can zoom out just a little bit more. I want to see where we're at within the target. Okay, all right.
Relative to the grids.
Yeah, relative to the grid.
So
yeah, I like this. This is going to be pretty. This next data push is going to be kind of nice. I think it's good that you guys only made it 75 seconds this time, rather than you said it was 2 minutes previously. When you're real time steering, I mean, you're getting that data real time, so you don't even have these pushes. You just kind of have to make that inclination call right away. So, not using the target line and things like that. So, this seems about right, the right pace.
Yep. I remember my last well up in North Dakota. we were drilling so fast. It felt like I was a cowboy strapped on a rocket ship. And the EM tool wasn't able to, we weren't able to get data, but we also weren't waiting for everything to mud pulse up. So we were drilling at something like 600, 700 feet an hour. And with all the noise that you would expect to get on when you're drilling that fast. And then on top of it, we would lose 25 to 30 feet out of every stand because we weren't waiting. We weren't waiting. We were just going ahead. And you're like, there's a whole lot of this involved at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember drilling a few wells over there in the Appalachian area. It was, you know, that's what it was. It was go, go, go. And you wanted to put a downlink in. They were like, well, we're already Kelly down and we're on to the next one. So you're going to have to wait a stand. And you're like, oh, man, what are we going to do next? So, oh, here we go. Next data push.
Yep. We can see it. And we're really starting to get this spread now. So for better or worse, you know, we can, and I almost wonder with this, let's see here, with this one that looks like it's kind of going a little bit high. I wonder if they're maybe having some technical difficulties there, but everybody else is
pretty straight. It doesn't look like there's much deviation from the first angle that you had, the first inclination that you had coming out.
Well, my guess is here that what we're going to see is that it's either going to blast right through the zone, in which case our technical support team is going to be reaching out and trying to help them get it back together. Okay.
That'd be a shame to make it to the finals and have that happen like that. And
yeah, it would be, you know, we do have a couple of contingency plans if there's something in the actual software or the script that that is putting people where they want. But Igor is actually actively checking everybody's target line, and everybody is putting in data right where they want.
Oh my God, poor Igor. That's got to be. I see why he's not on video call, huh?
It's been amazing to be part of this. And yeah, I'm kind of the face of it, but this is a full team event. Like I cannot tell you the hundreds of hours that have been put in by different people on our team. With Igor, we're running thousands of tests to make sure that everything runs smoothly. Krill and his team over there doing some of the same. The Latin American team. Okay, let's see here.
Got the push. Okay. Oh, you know, it looks like maybe it's not a technical difficulty on that upper. You know, not being able to see the vertical track and just kind of tracking these. It makes it a little bit more interesting because, you know, obviously we can't see their interpretations. So.
And
hey, just so
what was that, Shane?
I just wanted to point out that one of the participants, two of the participants they weren't seeing the push, and then that was Nick Driscoll, and then Philip Sasmek says that he's not getting the data yet either. So,
okay, well we got the team working on it there. So guys, if we'll let Igor and the team be able to do their best to be able to try to resolve that. And if we need to, we may have to pull a stop card. I don't know for sure. I'm going to let the technical guys behind the curtain here just make sure. Now, what we can see here, though, is that, and what I'd like to do here is turn on my image log. So I'm going to add a track.
You know, I just popped up the Q&A, and there's also a bunch of other people. There's Robin that's not getting the data. It says Mike is having some technical difficulties as well.
Okay. Yep. We got somebody working at it. It looks like the MD, as far as where C4PO is here, and C4PO looks like he's a little bit high relative to everybody else. Is at 8,635 is the latest measured depth. Now, of course, everybody's measured depth is going to be a little bit different. Okay. Now, I wonder, the people who aren't seeing anything being pushed to them, is there a possibility that you logged into the wrong well? Might you have logged into the conventional instead of the unconventional?
That's a good question. It's must be a little nerve-wracking to watch this live stream and not be able to pick this data up.
Okay, well, they are definitely working on it. In the meantime, other people are moving ahead with the competition here. I'm going to basically defer to get a little bit of information here. Now,
So C4PO there looks like they're coming down. It looks like if you might it's a little oh wow, that's some variation.
mm-hmm. Okay, and so we can see when we're looking at these image logs, right?
Yeah, let's take a look here. Oh wow, okay. So I'm working with one screen, so I keep on having to move things around here.
Yeah, it's every once in a while we have to go back to that one screen world and we remember why we went the other way in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, while this is going on, we also have some other interviews, and I'm going to go ahead and play one here. Now, this is Ron Thompson, and our very own Janelle Springer interviewed Ron. Ron works for an operator down in Australia, and he's going to give us kind of a feel for what it's like to geosteer in Australia, in the land down under, because geosteering is a job that is truly global. These are the skills that you can take and you can work anywhere. It's one of the beautiful things about being a geologist is you're not necessarily limited to one particular place. So I'm going to go ahead and start that video, and it'll run for a few minutes, and everybody can kind of just get a feel of what it's like to do some steering down there.
Yeah, this should be great.
Open. And of course, as always, it always opens on the wrong screen.
I'm here today with Ron Thompson. Ron is a senior geologist.
Give me just a second, folks, to move this over so everybody can see it. There we go. And we'll start it over. There's our very own Janelle Springer.
All right, there we go. Excited to hear this.
Okay. Well, I'm here today with Ron Thompson. Ron is a senior geologist at Beach Energy, which is a ROGI plant located in Adelaide, Australia. Ron and the team were among the first to be geosteering in Australia. So I thought who better to give us an overview of the Australian oil and gas industry than Ron. So Ron, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So maybe before we get started, I'll pull up a map of the basins in Australia so everyone can see what we're actually looking at here, or what we're going to be talking about. And we can, there we go. Hey, there, can you see my screen there, Ron?
Yep.
Okay, so we've circled a few of the important or big basins, I guess, the up and coming basins, if you will, where horizontal drilling has really started to take off. So today we're going to be talking about the Cooper Basin, which Ron will be taking us through, as well as we have the Bowen-Surat Basin, and the fairly newly drilling Beetaloo Basin located in the Northern Territory. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with the layout of Australia, those are some of the basins that we're going to be touching on today. Okay, let me jump back to you there, Ron. Okay, let's stop presenting. There we go. Okay, Ron. So what can you tell me? Let's start generally, I guess. What are some of the main basins that are being targeted in Australia, specifically maybe by Beach Energy? What can you tell us about those?
Yeah, so I'd say the two main play types is the coal seam gas that you pointed out in Queensland, and then Beach mainly operates within the Cooper Basin. And we currently have two play types, one in the Viljoen and the other in the Birkhead.
Okay, fantastic. And what can you tell me, I guess, in terms of the geology of the Cooper Basin there and those two play types?
Yeah, so the Viljoen is a terrestrial transgressive braided fluvial system. And we're targeting approximately 2 meter thick target in that one. And the Birkhead is a Jurassic fluvial with Western embedded channels. A little bit more difficult to geosteer, and that we're just targeting the channel sands that we picked up on seismic and offsets.
So obviously being fluvial systems, it's a little bit more complex than some of the, for example, unconventional plays that we see in North America that are being targeted. Do you find that using geosteering helps to place those wells in these fluvial systems? I mean, that's something we don't always see as commonly here in North America.
Yeah, so definitely geosteering is a necessary practice for these. Like you said, I think the big difference is the heterogeneity of the reservoirs. So a lot of times we'll see things pinch in and come back in. So you just have to be ready to react to that. Be ready for the ever change.
Okay, no, for sure. I guess along that topic there, Ron, are there any particular drilling hazards that you guys encounter in these types of plays? Or even, I know, let me back up and make it a little bit broader. Ron, you have quite a bit of drilling experience also in the United States. So perhaps along that topic, how do you find the drilling in the United States differs from what you're seeing in Australia?
Yeah, so the practices in the US versus Australia, I'd say, it's relatively new application of geosteering, which we kind of touched on. I'd say within the past 5 years, it's become a really prevalent practice. And a little bit higher end tools, just because of the nature of the reservoirs and that heterogeneity, and a smaller aerial extent. So in North America, it seems that the structure just kind of goes on forever because you're targeting these type shells, these shells and type sands. And here it's these localized small structures that are quite frequent but not continuous. And I think,
do you find that the faults that you encounter in the Cooper Basin are equivalent to what you would have seen in the States, or are they a little bit different?
yeah, so as far as the hazards go, I'd say the faults are probably more benign. A lot of the hazards are more benign, and probably the real difficulty is with defining the structures. So we have plenty of seismic data, but it's relatively low relief structures, and so the time depth conversions really matter. And so we even started to use well control to find our landings, and then we'll drill out and kind of appraise the structures with the toe of the well. And sometimes we'll extend the field, and sometimes the field will end a little sooner than we find.
You touched on something else, Ron, too. You mentioned that the actually horizontally drilling itself is still relatively new in Australia, which I think is something that a lot of our North American users might be surprised by. My understanding is that it's because Australia has prolific conventional plays, and especially offshore. And so is the unconventional world, shale play, if you will, is that still relatively new in Australia?
It's definitely something that's probably since as long as North America's been looking at it. And they definitely do have some shales and tight sand plays that they just either worked minimally or they still are.
Sorry, Ron, it looks like we're having some issues with the internet. I'm sorry, you still there?
Oh, yep, still here.
There you are. I'm sorry, can you please just re-summarize the last few things you just said there?
Yeah, so I was just saying that I think they've definitely looked at the unconventionals and have attempted to create that, and they have with the CSGs, and there's been some tight sands that they've been quite successful at. And then there's been plenty of other plays, and that's the reason I initially came over here. And it was just a matter of we haven't found that recipe, right? So I think that's the big thing on unconventionals is finding the appropriate technology and get the hydrocarbon.
Awesome. Yeah, it's pretty neat. It is a completely different world from what we see in North America for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely practices to apply, but some it's a unique problem. So.
Exactly. No, that's really neat. A final question for you, Ron. You mentioned that different sort of technologies are used. A lot of the times I just see our clients using gamma, for example, steering off of gamma. What sort of logs do we see being recorded in Australian plays?
Yeah, so I'd say we do quite a full suite. We do, porosity logs, which help out some of the image log from density. We do resistivity, forward resistivity modeling, which work with for you guys on. And we've also done some microscope, so that helps with the embed nature of some of these. Yeah, very different from what I've seen in North America, to where it's gamma ray, and you're almost lucky to even have a gamma ray tool. So,
Yeah, it's nice to be able to have a little bit of additional data for sure.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, Ron. Well, before we wrap up, was there anything else that you wanted to mention?
No, I think that was it. Thanks for having me on, and good conversation.
Well, thanks so much, Ron. We're here in the middle of the World Cup geosteering competition, so we're wishing all of our competitors the best on their trials here with the 2 wells that they're drilling today. So thanks so much, Ron, for joining us.
Good luck, everyone.
So we'd like to thank Ron and Janelle for putting that together for us, giving us a little bit of a look into what it's like to be drilling down in the southern hemisphere down in Australia. One question I was hoping they'd ask is, how do you get a job doing that down there? Maybe we
can tell you what, that'd be amazing. It's just like a giant Southern California over there. You know, I'm noticing that it looks like there's a couple of people that are still having some issues. I don't know if Igor.
I think that from what we're seeing here, everybody should be good. We just have to keep in mind that there's those different servers, right? So different people get their data at different times. Okay. But it is being monitored, and from what I'm being told here, everybody is getting data. They just may be a little bit behind everybody else.
Perfect. Glad to hear that.
They should be. Yep.
You know, it'd be interesting if you have these participants grouped by region. I know you have it grouped by color, but then you could, turn them all off, turn them all on, get kind of some kind of speculation that might be able to say, hey, you worked mostly in North America, or you worked mostly in Australia, and it might have some kind of difference on the way that people steer just because of the different basins that they've all learned in.
When we at the end of this, I think we're going to take this and make like a kind of a sped up video. So the whole thing won't take as long, and we'll be able to see. But you can definitely see that there's been two primary trends that we're seeing here, right? So there's some people who came down and they started to hook, came back up, but they kind of leveled off. And then there was other people who went up higher, and the people who went up higher, it seems like they're now trying to dive back down. Yeah. So.
And you said that they have a maximum of four dog leg severity. Is that correct?
Yeah, in the lateral. Yep, in the lateral. Yeah. So now, no matter what they put their target line at, even if you put it at 175, or infinite, the script will only allow you to reach 4.
Oh man, yeah, that's that could. Well, I mean that's good because it's real world situation, right? If we have too high of dog legs, we can't do the completions.
Yep, absolutely. Sometimes you can't even push casing, and even if you can push casing, even if you can run casing and you can complete, you're still going to have these sumps that are in your wellbore, right? Exactly. That it's going to reduce the life of your well potentially. I know there's still a little bit of discussion about like that actual effect, but I think everybody generally agrees that a flat wellbore is the best wellbore.
Exactly. And I know from experience that having those sumps in secondary production or tertiary is really, really crucial not to have them, because you end up getting those sumps, and if you're on pumps, it's not going to make it past that. So
yep. Then you got to have the reamer runs, and you got all these other things that you're going to have to do. I mean, even at the very, like in the 2021 World Cup, one of the things that we're looking at doing is, instead of having a success rate, we're actually looking at having an ROI, right? So if you, I mean, granted, the price is going to be minuscule compared to other costs, but if you have a lot of roller coaster porpoising going on with your wellbore, that's more stands that you have to put down hole, and each one of those stands costs a certain amount of money, in both like just the physical having to bring out more drill pipe, but also more time, right? So we're going to try to bring even more variables into bear. So drilling a well faster is obviously going to save you money. drilling well straighter, being in like rock so that you get more stages that are in the actual productive zone. Like these are some things that
for sure. This will be interesting for 2021, and Star Steer putting this together is absolutely amazing. You don't see other companies that are going to this much effort.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you guys are above and beyond. You do understand that this is going to be the future in a lot of basins. And though it's been around for a long time, I just don't think there's anything like this program. And not to mention the help center. I know I've back in the day, I've called Janelle several times and was like, hey, I have a question. And somebody was always available, yourself included, by the way. So,
yeah, to provide the elite service. Of course, we also have Steven, Andre does. We're going to get Julian back in support just so he can keep sharp and understand what's going on.
Right.
Sure, he'll be excited to hear that.
You guys picked up Sergey from Go24 as well, didn't you?
Well, we won't say what company, but we did actually pick up Sergey, and yeah, he's brilliant. He's a great addition to the team. Has a lot. He's very organized and really helps us keep everything going in the direction that we want for sure. So we're about so we're going to TD this here at around 4,400 VS. I think we actually had to change it a little bit to get a little bit more information in there. But we are approaching the halfway point, and you can see we do have a pretty tight bundle. But with the thinness zone, it's a scenario where you really you're either in or you're out. The way that
So let's do a little speculation here. The people that you see that are coming down so fast because potentially they were out of zone. Do you think that they're going to have any implications of flattening out here? Because it looks like most other people are trying to level it off. It looks like they're kind of coming down pretty quick. So,
well, general structural trend, it's based on wells, right? Actual wells that were there. So in general, it's going to be correct, but it's not going to include the structure that's happening point to point, right? So that's why we love seismic, right? Because it gives you a little bit higher resolution, allows you to see faults and try that haven't been encountered. Like if you just have a wellbore on either side of a fault, you don't know that there's fault there. You just know that it could either be dip or fault, right? And so with this structural map that we're showing here, and I guess I'll go ahead and bring that structural map up here. The other thing, let me bring up one more log here. We can also look at the ROP that's going on here.
Oh, that would be interesting. Oh, okay.
Right. And so this is 25% of what the score is. So the maximum value is over 300 feet per hour that you could be getting. And so right now, if we look at C4PO's scale, right, you can see that right here, he really got into some fast drilling. Right. Right now we're at 300. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and put a marker at 300. So I'm going to do a cutoff to log. And let's do it at 280, right? So you can see right there. So the only time he really we'll move it down even a little bit lower, down to like 260.
Yeah, I was going to say you can it's filled, but okay.
And I'll go ahead and change the color of that fill, make it a little bit easier to see. Hopefully. Oh, there we go. All right. So we can see these are the areas, and C4PO, he's now this dashed green line here. So, he went up, came down, went up, came down. He looks like he might be doing some sim roller coaster action right there.
A little bit, yeah. What is Rosie looking like? Because she's also a robot, correct?
Yeah, let's look up Rosie. Where is she at here? Let's see.
And now the rest of the participants, they're actually not seeing everybody else's
no patterns. Well, they're not on their screen. Of course, on the live stream they can see it, but the way that it's set up is everybody is in their own virtual project.
Perfect, right? Perfect.
So we're going to go ahead and we got, so Rosie's going to be 151 right here. Right now she's pink, but we're going to go ahead and switch her over to black.
Give her a little dash line.
Yeah, give her a dash line. Okay, as well, so you can see, like, she was one of those that went high. In fact, she went the highest.
Wow, Rosie.
Yep. Well, I mean, one of the things you got to keep in mind with both C4PO and Rosie is C4PO is about a month old and Rosie's about 2 weeks old. So
machine learning, you gotta love it. You gotta love it.
Gotta love it. Let's see here. Let me check on something I wanted to see. All right. So what I'd like to do now is I actually have another video, and we'll continue to try. I'm going to try to do this kind of like picture-in-picture thing while we play some of these recorded videos.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Let's see here. Hold on for just 1 second. Well, actually, we'll just watch this. And Shane, if you just want to kind of commentate this while I get this next video prepped.
Yeah, not a problem. You know, I'm seeing some interesting trends. It looks like there's a couple of people that are starting to move up a little bit. You know, like so it looks like North America, Europe, and the Middle East, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, the largest part of the pack is right down there at the bottom of the structure map. So.
Absolutely, just below the grid, which I mean, they're still trending with grid, right? And this is one of those cool things with the new interpretation format is the ability to actually see all these things.
This is great. This is amazing. You know, these other people that are doing this right now, I really do commend them because you know they're taking time out of their own day. I know that they might get some kind of recognition, but at the end of the day, you know, they're just doing it to do it.
Yep, absolutely.
They still have to do their regular day jobs. I understand that, you know, business is a little slow, so this could be their day job, but you know, it's one of those things.
Yep, for sure.
C4PO just had some interesting come through there on the Azimuthal, huh?
Yep. Something. I mean, this is what I call the eye of Mordor, right? This is a roller. So you can see he was cutting down, and you know what? Right? What does that look like to you, right there?
Yeah. Right. Well, I know what it looks like.
There it is. But he was.
We'll see. I wonder what they're gonna do.
Well, you can see that he was as he started to kind of loop back up here. So it looks like he encountered something that changed his feeling about it. That's probably the second one of those that I see here on that image log. And this is what I call the eye of Mordor, right? Where you can see that he's got his frown, meaning he's cutting down, and a smile when he's cutting back up. So right here, he crossed over the apparent bed dip. So now as he goes up, he's cutting up into it. And we can see that happening right there. We can also see that when he at the bottom there, he might even gotten a little bit of bounce when he hit that low gamma, low ROP section.
Yeah, I wonder if that deflection is going to give him on dog leg. It's probably not going to be anything large. Well, I guess, you know, the program is programmed not to do anything above 4. So,
yep. So he'll keep on keeping on there.
Oh, looks like Rosie just kind of realized she might be a little bit low now, huh?
Yeah. I bet we could go ahead and look at her image log and make a suspicion that she might have just seen the same thing that C4PO saw.
I would believe so, yeah.
But one way or the other, I can't, you know, obviously we can't tell which one of those is actually better at this point between in our Robot Royal Rumble, or I'm not sure if it's a Royal Rumble or a Robot Romance, or maybe it's a little bit of both. But one way or the other, you can definitely say that there's probably been a little flatter trajectory that's being put on here by C4PO relative to Rosie.
Correct. Yeah, Rosie looks like she's more of a bender from Futurama. But, you know, you did say she's a little young, so. But you know, looking at the rest of the people, the real geosteerers, they're looking really good. You know,
yeah.
Obviously you can't tell for sure. We're not seeing their vertical track. We don't have the ability right now. Well, I mean, we have the ability, but it'd be kind of a chaos mess to see what they're seeing in ROP and things like that. This is going to be
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, for sure, what we could do is we could have put the ROP logs right there on the wellbores, but as you said, that'd be a lot to look at the same time.
Exactly.
What I'd like to do now is go ahead and start our next video. And so this is actually the reason that we had to record in advance is this is Karma Dosher. Now, she's the ops manager for MCWL Paladin, and she's actually competing right here in the finals. In fact, we could, if we wanted to, we could let her up here and see how she's doing, but we'll probably leave that until everybody's TD'd. I'm going to go ahead and start the video, and I'm just going to play it picture in picture, just like we did before.
That'd be great.
Hopefully it'll pop up on the right screen this time. Hopefully. I'm sure if I click it again, it'll double load. So
Gotta love those technical difficulties, right?
well, it's in the same way that they're feeling the pressure here because they're geosteering and people are watching, right? Like there's not just like darn near 100 people watching right now, but this is something that's going to be recorded. It's going to be on YouTube, right? So there's a little bit of pressure. At the same time, it looks like my computer is feeling a little bit of pressure. Road TV 2020. There we go.
There it
All right.
goes.
I'm going to go ahead and flip it so we can get this up here as well. So if anybody is trying to use this to kind of help them make some decisions or at least kind of see how they're doing relative to everybody else, we'll zoom out here a little bit so we can kind of see. There we go, where everybody's at. Okay, and we'll go ahead and give that a run. Next up on the Road TV 2020 Geosteering World Cup livecast, we have Karma Dosher. Now, Karma is the manager for MCWL Paladin Geological. Karma, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing really great, Dylan. It's great to see your face.
Yeah, well, it's the best I got here to do, and good to see you as well. Now, Karma, you made the finals. You triumphed there in the semifinals and advanced. Before we jump into that, though, can you tell us how long have you been in the industry? How'd you jump in?
I started in 2013 as an operations geologist at Sandridge in Oklahoma City. Was laid off there in 2016. Then I did some mud logging for a year, and then I've been geosteering. I knew I wanted to get back into geosteering, but I did the mud logging to get that experience. And now I've been here at CWL geosteering for 2 years. Loving it.
Awesome. Now, I'm assuming over this time frame, you probably dealt with more than a couple basins. Where have you worked?
Oh yeah, sure, of course. Well, personally, I have steered all the basins in Oklahoma, and then also Eagle Ford and Permian, Texas. So.
Okay, well, Permian. Apparently, that's going to help you out a bit today, because as this is playing, you're actually going to be steering in the Permian. That's the first round of the unconventional here.
Nice.
Yep. So now, as far as any experience that you've had in the Permian that you think will be helping you out here in the finals?
Maybe just, I guess in the Permian, we've done some Wolfcamp wells, some debris. Have any of that, Dylan?
I almost put some debris flows in there, but we ran into a little bit of limitations, and we decided to be nice. So no debris flows.
Well, that's good. There's still a lot of lateral variation, so we'll use multiple type wells and multiple interpretations just to keep them going at the same time.
Yeah, that's always one of the things in the Permian is that some of those cyclothems, you end up with markers above and below you that look really similar.
They look the same, yeah.
So those multiple interpretations will be key, clutch, if you will.
Clutch.
Yeah. So since you guys just went through this kind of merger, how is everything going for you?
Oh, it's really great. We, as you know, we're MCWL Paladin, and MCWL, and we purchased Paladin. MCWL has been around for like 30 years. So we have the experience with that, and then Paladin is like this new, fresh, really amazing geochemistry, one of the kind tools that are used. So we have a good combination of experience and innovation. So we're really excited.
You know what? Next year, as we continue to make this World Cup even more robust, maybe geochemistry is something we could look at adding into it. That's my background. I have my master's is geochem, so I'm all on board with that.
Cool.
Yes, ma'am. So far as the things that you felt like that helped you get through the semifinals, like how did you do so well?
I practiced a lot on your simulator, which is really amazing, and I'm going to use that as a training tool. And I love it. So a long time practicing. The tools that you're using for the unconventional and the conventional with the dynamic azimuthal and the dynamic ROV, those I use a lot. And even the dynamic gamma ray logs, I use all of those. And they add a huge degree of confidence to my interpretations.
Yeah, especially, and I'm not suggesting what might be coming up here, but I know in that Woodford well, there was that fault about 2/3 of the way through there. And one of the ways that you can identify a fault quickly is on those image logs, right?
Yep, sharp change, yeah.
Sharp change,
Right.
and you throw breaks as well, but the image log is where I would look for it.
Same, yeah, great tool.
Cool. Well, and as you mentioned, as a training tool, using StarSim, which is the script that comes built into StarStudents that the World Cup script is based off of, that's something you can use for, I don't know, not only just training on new hires, but when you start to pick up new basins.
Oh, definitely, for sure. Because one thing I've noticed with the simulator or it's just the competition steering a whole basin that I've never, drilled before. And surprisingly, I haven't steered any wells in Kazakhstan. So, but I mean, those concepts of geosteering, they fall into any basin really. So just to see that I'm able to steer anywhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Huge.
And the more logs that you put in there, the more lifelike, realistic, I guess is the better word, you can make it. So if we start to be able to identify things like drilling hazards that are in a particular area. So one of the things that in the Woodford that you dealt with is when you got in that lower part, like C4 PO did, your ROP starts to go through the roof. But you also start to run into some well stability issues, wellbore stability issues. So that's something else that we could put in there and make it like, yeah, if you get down here, you're done.
Just real life simulator, yeah.
No, absolutely.
I love it, yeah. It's great tool.
Okay, well, Karma, we appreciate your time today. Do you have any last words before you dive into this competition?
No, just be for me next year at the user meeting, pulling my wagon with the World Cup in it.
Well, the LinkedIn post about the World Cup actually should be going up here pretty soon. They haven't gotten there in the office in Houston, so it'll be exciting.
I'm excited to see it.
Yes, ma'am. All right.
And actually, just good luck to everyone. I'm just happy to be involved.
Well, we're happy that you're involved, and of course, happy you guys continue to be clients. Thank you very much, Carmen.
Bye, Dylan.
All right. I don't know really why this time, but let's see how we're doing. We're about 2/3 of the way through the well. Now.
Some interesting things happening there, huh?
Yep. Coming up with 3,000 VS.
Yeah, it looks like Rosie's shooting for the stars, huh?
Yeah. Hey, man, you remember where the Jetsons lived? They didn't live on. They were up high.
It's crazy to think that reference is almost over. So there might be people on doing this game right, or this simulation might not even know who that is.
Yeah, I think that is a fairly likely scenario, especially since I don't know how global the Jetsons even were. When we were first coming up with this, I actually talked to one of my Latina teammates, and they actually have a different name for Rosie down there, and she was Robita.
Oh, really? Yeah, oh, that's interesting.
Yep. And I was like, I think that's pretty cool. I'm going to, let's see here. Well, format. We're going to go ahead and turn off those survey points. Make it a little bit of a cleaner look for us.
All right. Yeah, this is looking good. For the most part, there's a lot of people right in that general trend.
Mm-hmm. Now, what I was thinking is as we start to bring this in, I'm we want to be able to talk about, okay. We want to be able to talk about our, like the different people who are involved here. And, basically we sent out an email telling people like, hey, if for whatever reason, whether just because, you're a bit shy, or, your operator, or your company you work for might not want your name out there. We basically said, okay, we won't mention you, but this is an event that's not, it's about community as much as anything else, right? So the people who, like you said, are taking time out from their day and doing their very best to, to compete here, to entertain the rest of us, and to kind of show their value. I think that they all deserve to have their names on. So I'm going to go ahead and light up a few of these. I'm going to turn the labels back on.
Okay.
Rosie is trying to find her way back home. And then as we zoom in here a bit, we can see where all of our different users are, right? So there's Mike Bodner, Jacob Leader, Mrs. Rock, Astro Wiki. And as we go back in here, see that there doesn't, obviously trend.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like everybody is fairly similar,
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, geosteering is really a kind of a community event at a company. It shouldn't just be solely put on one person. Obviously, at a time there is, but I remember always going to my other desk and going, hey, this is what I have. You want to take a look at it? I'd be interested in your thoughts. Because people had different lengths of experience, they had different ways of looking at things.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they were more analytical, less technical, things like that. It really is a team effort. Oh, we're getting some more pushes here. Oh, it's starting to spread a little bit, huh?
Yep. Well, you can also see like the people who are on server 1, right?
Okay.
So there's Pat.
Yeah, I see
Coming
that.
up.
Okay. And then those that must be the last server that's all the way back there at 10.9.
Yeah. So yep. So you can see. Let's look here. So at this point, we'll just bring over our spreadsheet here.
All right.
See that. That below 135, and we've just crossed vertical section 3,200. So
Okay.
headed towards TD there. Looks like we might be
going to be about 44 vertical section, if I'm not mistaken.
correct. And it looks like it's running a little bit lower than it was, a little bit slower than it was. I think because we had to fix a few things there at the beginning, so we'll probably be a little bit off schedule as far as when this first well TDs. Going ahead and watching the interpretation here that's being put together, or not even the interpretation, the actual data that's being put together by C4PO as well, with everybody's wellbore. And as we're looking at these image logs, we see that transition. So he was cutting down. This is what, I don't know, did you call these train tracks when you're running parallel to?
Some people did, usually that was the typical name for it when you're running parallel to bed dip. It'd be interesting to have Ed Stockhausen on here and see what he wanted to call everything.
I suspect that Ed would have some opinions, that's for sure.
I'm surprised he's not on here as a guest speaker,
I'm not gonna lie, I think I'd find him a little bit intimidating here. So
yeah, oh yeah, I could imagine.
I'd be a guest on his show.
He'd end up taking it over, right?
Yep. Well, I mean, he has more knowledge. The old thing about he's forgotten more than I'll ever know is probably true. Like,
oh yeah,
he's not a wealth; he's an encyclopedia.
Yeah, he was just, we just had him in a meeting recently. It's, he's still the same old Ed. He's very smart, very, gets off track once in a while.
Yeah, but like when you follow him down some of those rabbit holes, you learn things that you never would have.
It was a pleasure working with him when I had the chance. It really was.
And it's one of those things we talk about, like when you have an effect that's named after you, like we did right here with the Ed Stockhausen effect. It's that you've cut some ground in the chosen industry.
Oh, exactly.
Okay, here. All right. Zoom
out a little bit here, see what kind of grouping we're having.
So it looks like, I'll tell you one thing, looking at Bill's, and I apologize, it looks like I spelled his name incorrectly, but I'm sure he corrected it. I would say that looking at these without even knowing what the structure is, Bill is kind of out here by himself. So he's either winning this or he's going to be in trouble, right? He's got his own unique situation there where everybody else is kind of bundled up here.
Yeah, and Bill looks like he was the one that started off at a much higher or a lower angle here out of the gate.
Right. Yeah, I wonder if maybe he had if that was something that was intentional, or if he had something come up and couldn't move his target line.
Because it could be those technical difficulties that might have happened, but I guess we'll find out here in a little bit. Man, this is interesting here. We see CP40, C4PO, excuse me. Everybody's very similar to that. And, I don't want to use that as the gold standard. It's just the one that we can talk about without making anybody, without potentially hurting somebody's feelings,
Right. We can always heckle a robot. I told Igor, who's C4PO's father, that to one level or another, C4PO is a piñata, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
He's the one. Now I've got something interesting I want to show you guys here. Let me bring this over. So those of you who are, obviously, if you're in the semifinals, you've definitely heard of it. But we came out with a new product, StarFrac, and Andre is actually watching all these wells come in StarFrac. So these are all the wells being drilled in 3D in StarFrac. And what he's going to be doing is actually creating scenarios about, we talked about like rock earlier, like the different stages. How many stages did you get in your preferred zone? And this will be a key to the 2021 event when we start looking at modeling production based on the wellbores that different people drilled. So I think what we saw right here, I think this was Rosie. Yeah. Heading back to the clouds. So
yeah,
anyway,
gonna go clean up after Astro.
Yeah, somebody has to. It reminds me of my dogs, honestly. So we're coming in here. You can see there she goes, Rosie. Well, it looks like CPO, at least he gets to be the dominant robot here, even if he
in this particular case.
Yeah, for sure.
In the last round, how well did you say C4PO did? He didn't even top.
So he did real well until there was a fault in the unconventional, and when he hit that, he was never able to get it back together. Now he never he didn't take the Elon Musk trajectory here, but he definitely didn't finish in the money, if you will.
Yeah, that's fair. And this is, I know people are always talking about the future of geosteering and that will always, at some point, will be obsolete, but there's a perfect example right there that we'll always need a human being watching at some point.
Yep. Because so in some ways, the squiggle matching, like we've had the AG tool, the assisted geosteering tool, for a bit now. And it's getting better. It for sure is. And to the point where it's a powerful second set of eyes. But the assisted geosteering tool is basically running an algorithm that's, in fact, that's what C4PO is using, is the AG tool. C4PO is a combination of our AG tool and a script that Igor's written that moves the target line around based on horizon positions. right?
Oh, nice.
And so, we'd hope to actually get an interview with Igor on that, but he's busy, keeping everything going here. So we'll probably have to skip that. But the key thing is that the computer just doesn't understand geologic possibilities, right? Like you can put in there dip restrictions, right? You can say ±5 off the grid. But it doesn't have the ability to truly understand the geology. Like it's just seeing the zeros and ones that make up these curves.
It doesn't know what a carbonate debris flow is.
No.
Or a tidal environment. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And
go ahead.
I was going to say, are other players making their own grids down here? It looks like on the left-hand object tree, looks like there's some new grids that player 13 and player 39 made.
No, I'm just using their grids. I had so these are virtual projects.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. That's why I was curious.
It has their own grids, right? So in 2023, 2020.3, people are no longer able to like delete or change things from other people when we have them set at the appropriate security thing. But the risk was that some users might be in an older version of StarSteer and they might accidentally delete or change a grid that would affect other users. So, so what we're doing is each user has their very own grids and polygon sets. This won't be necessary in 2020 when we have this event again. It'll be taken care of. So as we just start to look at this bundle, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing well if you're in the middle, but at least you're in good company. So as we start to kind of look in here, you can really start to see C4POs riding high. There's our mystery. There's Karma. Oh, somebody's diving down. Jacob taking a dive down. Mr. Shade.
Yeah, it looks like Doshio did as well. But you can see a general trend towards this area right around, what's that, about 84.8 TBD.
Right.
You can see some people are moving towards it. Some people are moving down. Yeah, can you zoom in a little bit for us real quick? I want to see what.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a small little mouse technical difficulty there. It decided it needed to be charged. Luckily, it's not a AA battery one. So as we zoom out here a little bit.
Oh, okay.
And so when this is done, as we get closer and closer to TD here, what everybody's going to get is you're going to get a, when you hit TD, when your well hits that particular vertical section, we'll have you'll get a comment box, and that comment box will have your success score. And so keep in mind that success score is going to be 75% based on your in-zone percentage and 25% based on your average ROP relative to the max, which is 310, right? So we can see that C4PO, there was a couple times when he got above 3, what did we set his cutoff at?
260, I think we moved it down to.
Right. So for the most part, he's been there. He's just getting some above 260, but we'll go ahead and set his max there at 310. Right. So you can see a couple times. In fact, he actually might have gone so deep that he got into some high ROP stuff, or high enough that he got into some high ROP stuff up above.
Yeah, it looks like that right over here, back in the man, Rosie. She's just lost, huh?
She's gone. She gone.
And it looks like there's a few other people that may have they have a similar trajectory, and it looks like they might see something a little different now. And then, can you zoom out just a little bit more?
Yes, sir.
Is that still Bill down there?
Yep. He's hanging out down low. He might have some information or a theory on what's going on that other people don't have.
Yeah, that very well could be.
And I mean, and there's something to be said for everybody who knows me knows that I'm I always feel like the cone of uncertainty is like that's the missing link as far as everybody's geosteering strategy, right? So we have these structural surfaces, even seismic surfaces. Sometimes we have toe wells that we're going to be drilling right past, old verticals, and there's always this tendency to be like, all right, well, we know where it's going to be. Like we're going by this well, and we know that the at subsea PVD, insert value, that's where our target is. But what we don't know, even when we use the best correction tools that are out there, is what the actual position of our horizontal wellbore is, right? And so Start Steer has that Python script that allows you to bring your uncertainty in. But this is where that's where the Stockhausen effect comes in. That's where the ellipse of uncertainty comes in. And so you got to wonder when people are this close to the structural grid as they come into the toe, like, is that right?
Yep, exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself.
So it's like a lot of times you can inherit that trend from the structural surface, but as far as what we're actually seeing relative to where you are relative in the geology, it's hard to tell. I guess we'll find out here in about 400 feet or so.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. We're gonna go through and take a look at everybody's interpretation. I know there's a lot of people on here, so.
Yeah, well, what we'll actually do is we'll go ahead and I'll turn on the answer when it gets pushed over here. And so we'll be able to see the geology, and then we'll leave everybody overlaid above. And of course, we'll have a halftime show, so we'll be talking. We actually have James Hawkins and Rod Manzo from Core Geologic. James is he's a petrophysicist, and he's going to tell us a little bit about the petrophysics of this area, how petrophysics can help us drill better wells, how it applies to geosteering. And in the meantime, we'll be actually calculating the results. And what we hope to do then is, as we move into the second well here, we'll actually have we'll turn the people who are in the lead after round one. We'll turn their wells black, so people will be able to see, these guys. These are the leaders that you need to catch in that second well if you want to pass them.
Sounds good. Yeah, just highlight it. I like that.
Okay, so.
Oof, we're so close to the end here. This is going to be very interesting. There's clearly a couple of people that might have had a misinterpretation, caught it later on, but I'm also interested to see the people that were having technical difficulties and seeing what kind of percentage and zone they were going. I noticed one of the gentlemen was saying that they were just kind of trying to put it in the middle of the pack and they were drilling blind, which we've all done before,
Well, so from the information that I've been given here, and granted I can't see everybody's actual data set that's coming in, but we have a real tight QC that's going on here, and though there are some wells that are a little bit behind, everybody was getting data the whole time. So there's a possibility that maybe like their logs weren't, they didn't have them displayed or something like that. Hopefully you never want to see any competition. It's like when you're watching a football game and it ends on a pass interference call, right? Nobody wants to see that.
Or a tie.
Yeah, nobody wants to see James Harden shooting free throws for the win, right? Like we want to see somebody popping for three or going in and making the play. So you hate to see anything like that have in a competition as important as this one is, have that be part of the defining thing. So we're coming in here, and man, this is cool, right? Like look at all these names, look at all these people. I see Brad.
They all seem to be converging on that one spot, it looks like, Yep.
And as you can see that, like relative to the grids as they were coming in here, it seems like the majority of people feel like they need to be a bit low relative to it.
Yep.
But we'll find out.
There was a couple of sections where they were high there, around 11.5 on the or if you want to call it 35 in the vertical section.
Yeah, we see Katrina coming down, another fellow Gator. Go Gators!
Yeah, that's right, you Gators.
Yep, Gator Nation is everywhere. Okay, zooming in, you can see that right here in the middle, right there's a big bump.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. Looks like Dosher's in there, Driscoll's in there, Watson.
Pat's coming down, Ethan. Steven, Jay, Chris Bender.
Oh yeah, look at that. Okay, all right. Oof, we're almost there. This should be interesting.
For sure, for sure.
Now, Dylan, where are you guys able to? Are you getting these data sets donated from other companies, or are you pulling the data that's already available online from the railroad board or whatever it's called? You know, stuff like that.
So the cool thing about like this model maker is that in this case, all I really needed to build this was a type log with some log data on there. And so it's something that you can manually generate. But what we actually did is the University of Texas lands in the Midland Basin. They have some of a lot of their data has to be public, and sometimes they're even in LAS format. So
that's beautiful.
Yep. So we were able to get a type log that had a whole bunch of logs on there, and from there, then it was just a matter of generating an interpretation that could be turned into a model. So although I only used Gamma, and then and in an ROP log, which I generated off the density curve, we could have done it for anything, right? So you can make this. We could have made it like with shallow, medium, and deep resistivity. All right. We got some people who are coming into TD here. There may be one more data push.
Yeah, looks like there's one server behind there.
So we can look here. We got a comment box that just popped up for average ROP of 223. So, oops.
Not bad for CPO or C4PO.
Better than Rosie. Okay.
You're cutting out a little bit, just so you know.
Okay. All right. So, am I cutting out still, or is it a little more clear?
Nope, you're good now. You're good.
Okay. So what we're seeing here is there's a comment box that popped up. Everybody should have, and you can see that he was 30% in zone. His average ROP was 223 out of 310. Had a dog leg. He was up pretty high with all the jumping around for a total successful score of 40.3. Now I can also turn on the answer interpretation here. And what I'll do, I'm going to make this one the active one. And I'll even, to make it a little bit easier for us to see, I'm going to go ahead and light up the target. I'll fill it green. Okay, so this is the true interpretation that we were drilling here.
Oh, wow.
All right, so we'll back out just a little bit more, and everybody should see an answer interpretation that popped up. So you can see as we were coming in for a landing, there was that initial fault with looks like about a 30+ foot throw. So everybody landed low. And then we started coming back up. Some people came up aggressively. Some people stayed a little bit flatter. And then everybody kind of got back to themselves, started coming down, and then we hit another fall. This jumped up and pushed everybody back down. Once again, we chased back up, followed by our third fault right here. And then this was actually a horse and graben setup right here. So we were thrown up, and then we were thrown right back down. So relative to the actual grids here, so as we see these grids, the trend was correct, right? The trend, it looks like the grids ended up a little bit high after this last fault, but if you were on grid, you would actually have been in zone here multiple different times. You wouldn't have won. Go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, it looks like it's, pretty spot on for the most part for the grid. Yep. Obviously, you're not catching as much here towards the tail, but
for sure,
pretty decent.
Okay, and so now this is officially halftime. It happened a little bit later than we'd hoped, but what I'd like to do now is welcome James and Rod. James and Rod, are you guys there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, James. Rod, how about yourself? Okay, well, we'll let Rod jump in as he's able. Now, James, you just watched the first round of the World Cup final. After watching all this happen, what's kind of your opinion?
Well, let me tell you, it looks a lot more complicated than I was anticipating. I can tell you that. But no, it's real exciting. I mean, I used to geosteer a long time ago, and using software and spreadsheet both, and using images, and a lot of exciting stuff going on. I mean, they're trying to stay in zone, they're porpoising, but that's to be normal when you're trying to find where you're at.
Yeah, well, especially when some monster put these faults in here like this, right?
Oh yeah, it's a monster.
But at least there was no thickness changes. So now, James, obviously I'm familiar with you from our work together with the West Texas Geologic Society, and I know that you have a significant history both in geosteering and in petrophysics. Can you give us a quick background?
Sure. I kind of started backwards in the way a person would in their career. As soon as I got out of college, I started my own company. I had two companies. One, had a petroleum laboratory doing laboratory analysis, like a cuttings lab and an oil field chemistry lab. And then I went to oil exploration. I had my own company doing geochemical exploration, using geochemistry at the surface. Once I got through with that, and with the downturn back in the late 90s, so I've been in the business 33 years, so quite a while. I decided to go the other way, so I went to the service company side and started working with Schlumberger. There I was doing petrophysics, geology, geosteering back in the early 2000s. And once I was there for about 7 years or so, I went to work for the oil industry. So I went to Energen, Apache, also went to Callon Petroleum. So I've got both the service side, the geosteering side, the mud logging side, and now the oil service company side.
Okay, and so now you're with Core Geologic, and Core, obviously they're a service company who offers some geosteering, but I don't know how many of the service companies actually hire petrophysicists. So what's your role as a petrophysicist in working with the geosteering team there and at your clients? Where do you fit in?
Well, what we're trying to do is we're trying to incorporate petrophysics, geomechanics, geomodeling, machine learning, all these things we're trying to put together to make it applicable for geosteering or in real time. And so let me give you a little bit of background. So, geosteering, there's so many uncertainties. We don't really know what's happening between the wells until we get a bit in the ground. Well, all petrophysics, geomechanics, all these things are there to help you minimize your uncertainty. And by minimizing your uncertainty, it makes it easier for someone to come and geosteer an area. So we're trying to implement that type of technology into geosteering.
Okay, and specifically with, we talked a little bit last night, and I was really excited with you just watched these wells be built, and you're real familiar with the Midland Basin and the Wolfcamp in particular. As far as if this was something that you were helping these geologists out with, what information could you have provided them pre-drill as far as helping them pick the area that would give them the highest ROP while still maintaining production? And what information could you maybe generate for them while they're actually drilling their well that would have helped them out as far as understanding where they are, what might be happening, and just other things from the data sets that you provide?
So, there's a lot to that, right? The best thing to know is to get a triple combo well, a type log, in the areas that you can evaluate. There you look for your sweet spots. And your sweet spots, you're looking for key things. You're looking for, your clay. Is it a shale? Is it a silt? Is it a sand? Or is it a limestone? You look at your porosity. You look at your TOC, your oil in place. So these are things that you would have a petrophysical evaluation for in the vertical to identify your sweet spot. Once you've identified a sweet spot, then you're going to want to look at the drilling data, the drilling dynamic data of a well nearby, maybe, to try to see what effects are happening with the drilling, so that not only can you find a sweet spot, but you also want to be most efficient in your drilling. And to be able to do that, you need to look at your MSC, your mechanical specific energy. You also need to look at your undefined compressive strength calculations, which you can do both in the petrophysic world, but you can also do it in the real-time drilling dynamic world as well, not just MSC, but you can do UCS. By looking at those two things, you efficiently can cut the rock better so that not only do you have a sweet spot and you can drill as fast as you can, but with the drilling efficiency, you can even drill faster. So that's one way. You combine those two together, you can get through a well really fast. Now, in the lateral, one of the things that I would do for the geosteers to give them some information about that is you look at all your curves, right? I mean, everybody, we always get blinded sometimes and we're just looking at gamma ray. And there's so many other curves that are out there. ROP, for example, that's a great indicator. You could steer with just ROP if you had to. Mudlog data, if you had mudlog data, looking at the cuttings, looking at the gas data, that's all, you know, pretty important. And not only that, but you can do wetness and balance calculations using the Hawksworth method and try to determine oil zones versus gas zones and water zones, which would also help. And another thing that, especially when you have images, I always love to get the quadrants on the images, up, down, left, and right. By looking at those curves, it can give you a better understanding of whether you're cutting up or down section and to what degree. You can actually calculate a dip on an up and down gamma ray if you don't even have an image by measuring the distance, the height, and you can calculate the dip on that.
And so this was an unconventional, but the next well that our competitors are going to be actually doing is going to be a conventional sandstone from over in the Siberian Kazakhstani border area there. How would the petrophysical work that you do, would there be any difference between how you would apply it in an unconventional versus a conventional well?
So yes, that was an unconventional. So for conventional, I can give you an example of the Delaware Basin, since I have a lot of experience there. I have drilled some stuff in other countries, in Russia and a few other countries. But what I would look for is I compare it to like the Delaware sands, the Third Bone Spring sands, right? They're a hybrid. They're kind of conventional and they're kind of unconventional. And within the sand, you know, you look for of course, your porosity is your big thing, your permeability, because you're going to have those things. But what happens inside of a sand, sometimes you can get rip up clast, you can get all kinds of clays and carbon concretions, or that can interfere with the drilling of the horizontal well. So you want to look for those, and you want to try to identify those as best you can, and try to predict if you can where those are going to be in the lateral.
Okay, and I actually have some results here from the first well, and I'm just going to pull over a spreadsheet here with the top 10. So these were the top 10 highest scores that we have right here. So you can see the top 4, similar to what we saw in the semifinals, were from our European region. Highest score was a 66.3. You see Nick Driscoll is currently the highest North American right there at 57.3. Philip there at 56.8, representing the Middle East. So, this is highly weighted here, what we're seeing right now to the European contingent. So what we're really going to need to see from Latina, North America, and even the Middle East is they're going to really have to dominate here, if you will, in the conventional to try to catch up. 66.3 really setting the curve there. And this gentleman, I believe, he also set the curve in the semifinal. So as we start to move forward there, there's some work to be done to get caught up by our North American, Latina, and Middle Eastern contingent. Okay. Now, let's see here. Rod, were you ever able to join us?
Yeah, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, there you are, sir.
Hey guys, good to see you. Shane, long time.
And I skipped Robin there. Robin there representing Australia there at 57.5 with Arrow. So we got people from all different regions right there in that top 10 group. And remember, there's the World Cup, which is obviously that's for number 1 in the world, but the different regional champions will be getting that Apple Watch. Also, anybody who finishes in the top 10, you'll be getting a certificate mailed to you with your actual global rank in the top 10. And everybody who made the finals will be getting a certificate that indicates that they are indeed finalists. So it's pretty exciting. There will be some I'm sorry, we got somebody, Ashkenazi, Andrea is right there. So we have all of our regions represented here. So this is Latin America right here. We have a couple from North America, a bunch from Europe, and 2 from one from the Middle East and 1 from Australia. So it's truly a global World Cup. Impressive there. Rod, what were your feelings there as we were running through this and you were getting to watch everybody's well get drilled in these different areas?
Man, it's exciting. I'm pretty torn as my buddy Phil over there in the Middle East. I was bugging him saying, "Are you representing the U.S. or are you going to represent the Middle East?" So I'm torn.
Yeah, well, he's in the top 10, so no matter what he's representing, he's rocking it out right there.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. Thanks again, guys. Semifinals were exciting, but this is even better.
Yeah. Yeah, and at the end of the day, like you can't measure a geosteer obviously based on just one well or on especially one simulated well, but it does kind of allow you to show some of your abilities. It's not the whole picture by any stretch, right? Like there's so much of it that's just other stuff that you couldn't measure with this, especially just in a one well thing. But I still think this is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? To be a great geosteerer, honestly, a well-rounded geologist or field experience, development, everything that you can offer and throw at the table, doesn't matter what your plethora of skills is, takes a lot. And I agree with you there, Dylan.
For sure. Now, for the competitors out there, you'll have to click on data and close your project. And then you're going to want to open your conventional project. As we start to get ready, we want to make sure everybody has access before we get started. So if we could, let's go ahead and make sure that we are able to get logged in there. And we're preparing to get ready to get that data started. We do apologize that that last one ran a little bit late. It looks like we had a little bit of lag there at the beginning. But we had that's an incredible series of wells right there. Now, while we're waiting here, and let's see here, and I got it, and we got everybody here. In a situation like this where you have faults, this many faults, and this is open to everybody here, to James, Rod. When you're looking at this, and in a situation where there's 4 faults here, are there any strategies that you guys have all picked up in your experience to handle a situation where faults are possible but not necessarily identified pre-drill?
Yes, I can tell you that for me, whenever I hit a fault, if I can't identify it right away, I immediately have the driller start drilling up to try to catch the fault up, even if I don't know the direction, because it's a lot easier to go back and sidetrack down and to start trying to go down and chase it. So I always consider faults going up. But then it gives me time to evaluate the data, look at the data really hard, try to see if I can determine where the fault is and what direction it's going. But if not, at least I'm drilling, I'm not stopping.
I think that's great advice, James. I try to do the same thing because at the end of the day, sidetracking down is always easier.
But what about just as far as from like a navigating perspective? Like, so sidetracking, absolutely, obviously we hope, that doesn't happen. But when you're in a situation like that and you know that you've encountered a fault, how do you immediately try to react to it? Do you wait and see if maybe there's going to be a second fault coming on? Is there any like rule of thumb that you guys have developed in your experience? Ron, do you have any thoughts there?
I think you're right when you say with unexpected faults, it really takes the whole team right from the rig down. I mean, the drilling aspect of it, if they're communicating immediately that they're losing circulation, they're taking some losses, etc. You saw an RP break, you torqued up, something's happened. Obviously, in our geosteering interp, you're seeing it right there. Whether you're reacting to it immediately, like James says, I think the main thing is don't panic. We drilled through it. We drilled through something. Now let's look at the geology. Are we going through a system? Is it a deep fault? What are we working with? And then, like you said, James, Shane, they agree. Kind of, usually you're favoring high side. For me, sometimes it's, hey, let's just drill flat until we see what happens. We know structures going up, down, etc. Let's see what we got. If there's no seismic, there's no predictability. I think those are the main things to do, is look at the science and definitely talk to the rig and figure out what's going on.
Yeah. And from my perspective, and this is probably obvious, it varies depending on what the hazards are around you, right? So if, let's say we were going back to the Woodford from last week. Let's say if we faulted up and all of a sudden we're out of the Woodford and we're back in that Sycamore Springer area up above it, or we faulted down and all of a sudden we're seeing ROP that are so high that we know we're in that clay rich section at the bottom, we're now being exposed to a drilling hazard, right? So even if there's a situation where you might get thrown again, you have to weigh that against what risks is my wellbore being exposed to by drilling in this particular area. And so this is one of those things, I guess, that obviously, as you mentioned, it takes the whole team. Like we need to have a plan in place for what's going to happen. All right. If there is a fault there, in fact, probably we know there's faults. We just don't know where they are or what their throws are going to be. Right. We have a plan for what happens when that throw happens. We'll try to, because even with seismic, right, you might know there's a fault, but you don't know exactly what the throw is going to be. Like how many times you've been said, yeah, there's going to be a 30-foot fault and you hit it and it's not 30 feet. Anybody want to follow up on that?
Well, I can go back to the first question, right? When you're talking about the fault. Another thing that I always look for is sometimes you get quick lithology changes, and sometimes it can be interpreted as a fault. So what Rod was saying is, get some more data, make sure that's actually a fault. If you get in a fault, you're going to get a dramatic change in your gamma rate or your resistivity or whatever other curve you're using. And then you use the mud log to back that up. But usually you got 60 an hour or more a time before you can get bottoms up. So just time is always a good thing to try to get.
I'm going ahead right now. I'm loading in the convention. Actually, what we'd be looking for is everybody to get your target lines in position and to get ready. Yeah, we have a lead there for first place, but it's not something that's beyond the range of our users here to catch up with. So we really want everybody to crunch as best as they can coming into this last one. And we'll be going ahead and shading the basically probably like the top 5 here as we go through. But in the meantime, I'm going to open up as C4PO here. You can see once again we're all bundled up. And you can see structurally what we're looking at is kind of an upwards trend starting off reasonably flat and then pulling up. Once again, no thickness changes, but this is a sandstone. For those of you who didn't get a chance to read the GeoProg, one of the key things about this is directly above your target zone is a coal layer. And this coal layer, obviously, you're going to get massive ROP jumps, but you're out of zone. And down below you is a very dense layer, probably some sort of like carbonate rich. And so your ROP will drop down dramatically. But we're drilling this in the fashion that they're drilling in the area, right? We have the ability to invent every tool and make every tool usable. You could use resistivity, you could use everything. But what we're actually going to have, there's no image logs for this one. So you're going to have gamma, you'll have resistivity, and you'll have ROP. And that's what you will use to be able to drill your way through this. So it looks like we're just about ready here. So in about 30 seconds, we'll go ahead and start pushing the data. So I'm going to go ahead and give the message now. This is your last second to move your first target line. Everybody should be logged into the conventional and set to go. I'm sending the message. We're good. So gentlemen and women, please restart your diesels. We're ready to rock and roll here. Okay, and the data should be coming up here momentarily. And we're just waiting for the official go from here on the back end. But we've got a clearance from both of the live streams. There's actually multiple live streams that are going on here for people in different regions. Obviously, you guys probably know by this point, I talk a little bit too fast from time to time. So it makes it hard for people who, English might not be their first, second, or third language. The data is started, and you can see that we just got our first data push. So at this point, we'll go ahead, and I'm going to leave the labels on. So we can just get, actually, we'll wait until we get just a little bit further here into the landing before we turn the labels on, because right now everybody will just be overlaid on each other. Now, Shane, do you mind taking over for just a minute while I do a couple things over here?
Not a problem. So I got a fun little story. So this is from Siberia, or right on the border. My wife's actually from there. We actually got engaged in front of the oil and gas university in her hometown. Randomly enough, I just figured that was a fun little fact while we wait for this next push. It's a
little local flavor, if you will.
A little local flavor for sure. It's funny because I, think of Siberia and you think of a small town there as like itty bitty. She grew up in a town that was like 500,000-600,000 people. I grew up in a town that was 1,500. So I was like, oh, I'm the one that lived in the middle of nowhere, not you. So.
Yeah, we in fact, what we'll have here in just a couple minutes as we get going is I actually have an interview from our European manager, and he's going to be talking a little bit about what's going on in Siberia. So,
nice, that'd be great.
Because growing up here in the States, we didn't really know too much. In fact, I told him that the only way I really knew anything about Siberia was from the board game Risk. And I had no idea how gigantic it really is. It's massive.
It really is. I thought it was going to be I suggested we take the Trans-Siberian Railway, and she was like, yeah, you can take that by yourself. I will not.
That was actually my plan of how I was going to get back from Korea, because I really wanted to see Lake Baikal. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and start this video here. And early on, we don't really need to do the picture-in-picture because everybody's going to be basically be in the setcast. We have Kirill Rosen. Here, let me apologize. Let me get that going. Pro GTV broadcast. We have Kirill Rosen. He's the head of our European team, and he's going to tell us a little bit today about drilling in the Russian area, a little bit about his experiences as far as geosteering over there and production. Kirill, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Привет, Dylan. How are you?
We're doing great over here. And thank you for joining us today. Now, Kirill, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? How many years have you been in the oil and gas industry?
Yeah, I've been with the oil and gas industry for about 10 years now. I started working with one of the major service companies back in 2011. I used to work in Asia, in Malaysia, Brunei, and Thailand for about 4 or 5 years. Then I was transferred back to Russia with the same company, and I joined Rogi back in 2017. So since then, I'm working in Russia and Kazakhstan and Europe, and also covering the Middle East.
Jesus, it seems like you got some more exotic areas to go than I do. I love some Midland, Texas, and North Dakota is beautiful, but Thailand would not be bad. Now, what I was hoping here is, in my geologic classes, we didn't really cover too much of the geology of Europe, of Asia. We spent a lot of time in North America. Could maybe you give us a walkthrough, explain a little bit of the geology, and specifically the geology from an oil and gas perspective? What are the different areas of interest?
Yes, sure, Dylan. So here's, I'm going to show you the slides. On the left, you can see the overview of general basins in Russia. So you can see the very old one, the first one where it all started was the West Siberia region here. It was very prolific, very good porosity, great permeability. So when they first started to develop it, it was back in 1950s, 1960s. Lots of discoveries, both oil and gas fields. And they started to drill mostly vertical wells, and it was fine. Up until recently, when the fields become depleted, mature, high water cut, and then we start slowly transition to drill more and more horizontal wells and side tracks. So again, this is the one of the first and biggest basins that we're producing right now, both oil and gas. Towards the north part is mostly gas, and towards the middle and south part is mostly oil. We also have East Siberia here. You can see on the far right. This is very remote, and we do produce both oil and gas from there. But it's in terms of infrastructure, it's compared to Western Siberia, it's very well developed. And again, to give you an idea of how remote it is one time I actually went to the rig there, and we traveled from Irkutsk. There is a city nearby Irkutsk, and to get to that rig, we have to do it during the winter, because other time you cannot actually get there, so we're using the winter roads. And we literally spent like 5 days just driving through this winter road, getting our fracturing fleet to location. Okay. And also we have this demand picture region, and it's called Ural Volga region. So in there we're mostly dealing with carbonates. In the place here you can see it's called Tatarstan. That is where we have a lot of heavy oils. So you can see we pretty much have it almost everything. We're dealing with sandstone, we're dealing with shale, carbonates, heavy oils. So it's a mix, right? Depending where you drill, you will be dealing with either of these challenges. So this was mostly the conventional part. And recently we have the field which is called Viljoen. So this is actually the source rock. You can see it's also huge. It covers almost all entire West Siberia. So this is an unconventional source play. It's a Thai oil. It's a source rock. So I would say right now we are where probably you guys were back in maybe 10, 15 years ago when you started developing your shale plays. So a lot of companies these days, they are trying to invest in R&D, research and development, doing pilot projects, creating the joint ventures, and trying to find that perfect technology which will help them to produce economic from that mature Viljoen source rock. So probably in the next years to come, you will hear more about this source rock. And on the right, just to continue, you can see the contribution from the production side. So sorry, I tried to find the more recent version of it, but again, maybe since that time, 2013, some proportion will change, but in general, to give you a good idea, so you can see most of the production is coming from West Siberia. Again, this is very mature fields, mostly conventional fields. From the Viljoen field, we only getting just a little of production yet. And also Urals Volga region. This is contributing a lot to our production. There is some projects going on in the north part, but this is mostly Arctic project offshore. As well as we have something in the far east. Probably you heard about this place. It's Sakhalin. It's a very eastern part of Russia. There, they're mostly drilling in the continental shelf, and they don't do too much drilling there. One client of ours, they do, they drill maybe 1 or 2 wells a year, so it's not very drilling intensive. So yeah, that's an overview.
In these areas where you're really starting to kind of cut your teeth in drilling these horizontals, how long are the horizontals that they're drilling at this point?
Yeah, so if in terms of the length, typically if you're talking about the side tracks, the typical length is about 250, maybe 300 meters. And the laterals, the horizontal drilling, I would say 500, 700 meters. This is a very common length in terms of, we drill here. We go 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers. It's just around that ballpark.
Well, when we started here, that was the same. We would do maybe a 1 mile lateral, so that was pretty long. Now they do 3 mile, 4 mile laterals. So took a lot of the technology I think that was developed maybe for offshore and started to bring it offshore. As far as like the BHA types that you guys are using when you're drilling these areas, what kind of tools are you putting down?
Yeah, this is a very good question. Again, during this, economical environment that we're facing right now. Oil prices are low. A lot of companies are looking to optimize the cost of drilling. So a very typical BHA that we run is just MWD gamma ray and the resistivity, but resistivity is non-azimuthal resistivity, so it's you can say it's pretty cheap. And it's available. A lot of local providers have it. I'm not talking about the bigger service companies. So you can get it from the local providers, and it works as good as you imagine. And you use mud logging, of course, and just basic mud logging. The gas data and the drilling parameters. So that's pretty much, I guess, the BHA that you typically run. Some wells, maybe if they are more, you would use like logs or deep azimuthal resistivity. But again, this is case by case basis, and it's not very common to use this kind of tools.
Gotcha. Well, those tools sound pretty familiar, right? So all of our audience here who's maybe done a lot more domestic drilling here in the North American continent, that should sound fairly familiar to them. Now, could you show us a little bit about the stratigraphic column?
Yeah, so here, just to give you an idea, what we're dealing with here. So on the left, you can see the Western Siberia Basin, and I highlighted specifically the ages and the periods where we mostly drill gas and oil. So you can see highlighted in red the Cenomanian age here in the Cretaceous. And Poco, this is mostly the formation, this is mostly gas. So we're producing a lot of gas from these formations here. And down below, we can see the Jurassic, right? It's all like lower, middle, and upper Jurassic, as well as lower Cretaceous, Neocomian. We are producing oil. So one of the, most of the discoveries in Western Siberia was actually, happened in this place. And on the right, you can see, so here you can see again, it's mostly sandstones and shale. But on the right, I give you another example, Timana-Pichok Basin. So here it's not only the sandstone, but again, we're dealing with a lot of carbonates. So it's very diverse, and again, different companies facing different challenges. And when you're drilling carbonates, you have a completely different. It's very hard to geosteer by using only gamma ray. You have to use something else. So again, this is very diverse, and to give you an idea.
For sure, and that's where Starshare comes in, right? With our new resistivity functionality, the resistivity model, and some of the other technologies that are being kind of evolved and rolled out. It seems like that would be a good fit. And Krill, we're running out of time here, but of course, many of our users may have already spoken to you. So Krill, wherever he is in the world, whether it's Thailand or Kazakhstan or Eastern Siberia, sunbathing in Lake Baikal, he a lot of times would be the one who'd be answering your late night calls for support. So many of you guys may already be familiar with Krill. Otherwise, of course, you may have met him at some of the user meetings. So Krill, thank you very much for the information. And spasiba for the information, if you will. And thank you very much. Any final words to the audience here?
Thank you so much, and good luck, everyone. Yeah, let the best man win.
Yep. Or woman.
Or woman, exactly. Or woman.
Absolutely.
Good luck, everyone.
Cheers.
Thanks.
That's pretty interesting. Hey, Dylan, I didn't want to cut off the presentation. There's a couple people asking about the dog leg severity restrictions. It's still 4 again, correct?
That's correct, yes.
So I apologize to those people who asked, and I wasn't able to give you an answer right away. I just didn't want to say the wrong thing.
Yeah, and as we can see, once again, we got a pretty tight bundle. This looks like it was a much easier landing. No, it doesn't look like anybody is responding to any massive changes there. While this is going on, and we'll go ahead and turn on people's labels. I'm going to go ahead. I've put together basically a little virtual project that will let us look at the the top 10 wells that were drilled in the last one. And then very shortly, we'll have everything ready and we'll be able to look at it through StarFrac as well.
Nice. That'd be awesome.
Okay. And you can see right here, Rosie once again went, we could call her Rogue instead of Rosie. She went down, but it looks like she's recovering. And right here, we'll see 4PO. We're going to go ahead and make him once again a dashed line. So he's right there in the heart of it, and it looks like everybody's kind of converging into this one section. Okay. Seems like just looking at these wellbores, not knowing anything about the structure of the project, it seems like things are a lot flatter as far as these wellbores coming out. So looks like, you know, we had a little bit of landing low action probably, or at least people were coming right back up. There we go. And I'm going to turn this on here as well. And we'll go ahead and I'm going to bring over this other project here so we can look at our top 10 competitors here. And we'll see it from the perspective of our first place finisher in that, and turn. Horizon format, and fill it green.
Looks like some people are converging down. A couple are kind of moving up, which I wonder what they're seeing.
So this is from the unconventionals that were just finished, and these are the top 10 finishers. So you can see that as they were coming in, you know, we had this guy right here, and basically I just turned everybody else off. So as we're looking through here, I'm real curious to see. So that was actually Nick, right? Nick Driscoll right there. He was the one who came in, and we were wondering what was going on there. He ended up with finishing 6th overall out of the 50 people, right? And of course 2 robots. So coming in there, it didn't really hurt him that much because he did so well on the rest of the well. Although I guess the difference between being in first place and not was that. But by coming in that position, he didn't end up having to come back up to hit it when they intersected that 20-foot fault there. So we can see basically what happened is everybody came in, they got back into zone, and they were really tracking pretty well until that next fault hit. Right, and so that threw them out. Then everybody recovered, and bang, they got hit again, recovered again, and then on this last one, they got back in there, recovered, and then the 4th fault. So this is honestly, these are really well drilled wells, right?
They really do look pretty good.
Like outside of having seismic or something like that would really identify where those faults were, and maybe you could like split the difference so you don't have to spend quite so much time out of zone. I don't know what else you could do. Incredible job.
Yeah, and doing that soft landing like Nick did wasn't a terrible idea. I've definitely done soft landings before just because of uncertainty of the structure. So it was a pretty good tactic.
Yep.
I did notice on that 3rd fault though, most of the people were at the base of zone when that fault came through. So I'm wondering if there would have been any kind of indication, that they could have been maybe sitting a little higher in zone. I might have made it easier to get back in, but
it's once again, if you know that the fault's coming, that's 100%, like probably the move. Yep.
Yeah.
But
you never know.
Yep, and like you can see, everybody was riding high in zone here coming into that last fault, but then this was the only fault that threw you down. So, but this is impressive. Like on average, like basically everybody was able to get right back in, track along with it until the next fault came in and hit them. So really impressive wells right there, honestly. So
You know, honestly, I guess I kind of understand why they were riding a little high. Every other fault was thrown the opposite way. So I would have might as well assume the same thing.
I would as well. Now, you know what I think would be really curious here, really interesting, is to kind of see how this would look in, as we come back here and look at what's going on live, kind of see how this is going to look through Starfrac. So our very own Andre Popescu is the product owner for Starfrac. And so he's going to go ahead and jump on. Andre, are you there? Oh. Hey, yeah, apologize. We got to upgrade Andre here. Give me just a second. Let me find Mr. Popescu. There he is. Okay, make panelist. And Andre, I'm also going to promote you to presenter so that you can go ahead and show us what you got. Oh, Andre, you're muted. There you go.
Okay, there we go. Got it sorted out. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Yes, sir. Yeah, so thanks for having me. Let me just go ahead and share my screen. We can take a quick look at the results here in 3D. Okay, everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. So as you can see, we've got a pretty wide range of results here with obviously poor Rosie sticking out like a sore thumb. But as you might notice, if you were with us last week and saw the display then, we did add vertical exaggeration since then. So we are able to view this now with some vertical exaggeration and actually see, you know, how our wells line up with our zones. We wanted to go maybe turn on a couple horizons here, just so we can see how our wells look in relation to it. I'm going to turn on just the target top because if I turn on the whole interpretation, it's going to be a bit of a mess. So I think this is the last horizon. So yeah, you can actually see pretty much how everyone did with regards to the answer. Looks like everyone popped out his own at least once or twice, and that's certainly to be expected with the amount of faulting that we saw. But overall, like you said, everyone did really, really great, and most of the wells were well within zone or close to it. So that's pretty exciting stuff. So I guess the next thing to do would be to go through and set up our completions just like we did last time. So maybe I'll get Dylan and Shane, I'll get you guys or anyone else who wants to pipe in to help me walk through this completions planner, and we'll set up some fracs, and then we'll do some modeling based off of the petrophysical curves or the type well curves that we have, and see how everything looks with respect to the porosity that they're going to be fracking in. So feel free to chime in here. We're going to use our answer as the interpretation, which we want to plan our completions by. Whereabouts do we want to start? Can we start in the upper Wolf Camp, or should we start all the way down at the target top?
I think that we could probably start at the upper Wolf Camp. Now, we do have a petrophysicist here. James, what do you think? Should we start at the top of the Wolf Camp, or should we wait till we hit the target zone?
So some of the companies are actually perping up into the curve a little bit, trying to get a little bit more height on the growth. So, you know, typically, yeah, you'd start right before you enter the zone. But I like to go a little higher before in the curve, maybe, 10 to 15, 20 degrees up into the curve before you start.
Oh, actually, well, we can set a curve, like an inclination cutoff. So maybe we start right around 75 degrees inclination instead.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Are there any particular zones here that we need to be worried about or want to skip?
I don't think that we have anything set up that needs to be skipped.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. So basically then what we're going to be doing is we're just going to be optimizing to try to place those plugs for each stage right on horizon boundaries, so that we're trying to keep like rock with like rock as much as possible. And obviously if we went back in and added more horizons to our geosteering interpretation, we could constrain it a little bit more. So we won't skip any zones. In terms of the number of stages and the stage lengths, do these look reasonable to you guys?
That looks reasonable to me. Yep.
Okay, and then the last thing is maybe we'll put an offsetter on the fault, just because we do have a bunch of faults, so want to kind of try to stay away from those and not frack right into them. And so let's go ahead and apply this. And as you can see, we've gone, and maybe we should have skipped a couple of the upper zones for Rosie because Rosie's fracking all the way God knows where. But yeah, as you can see, we've gone ahead and generated some completions. And we can actually visualize this just by generating some baseline frac geometries. I think last time when we set this up, we did around 200 feet left, 200 feet right, maybe 120 up and 90 down. Does that sound kind of okay? Please feel free to jump in and change any of these parameters if you guys have better estimations.
I don't got better ones, so I'd say roll with it. What about the rest of you guys?
Yeah, that's a tough question. There's a lot of people have different answers for that.
Yeah, and so that's why we can have this system, which is fairly flexible and allows you to manually set it. But yeah, certainly if people have equations that they want to apply, they can do that within here as well. I think with lack of any kind of strict numerical model, we'll just go ahead and apply this and just see what it looks like. If nothing else, it'll give us an idea of, I want to do it for all of our wells. If nothing else, it'll give us an idea of kind of where our fracs are placed relative to the interpretations. Okay, so as you can see, it looks a bit busy here, likely because of the vertical exaggeration, but everywhere we've got faults, we've got a little bit of offset in between the stages. Maybe we'll tune the exaggeration down a little bit. So you can see this a little bit better. And so now we've got all of our completions planned out for these wells. And what we can do now is utilizing our geosteering interpretation is we can start to model some properties within these stages. So very first thing, I think we don't actually even need to use a geosteering interpretation for this. We can just take a look at our ROP per stage. So we'll go ahead and run this real quick. As that's running, I'll just go ahead and open up the spreadsheet that we're outputting this data to, so you can see we're calculating this average ROP per stage in real time.
Look at that.
And as soon as it's done, it should be any minute now, what we can do is actually display that in color and see how it's varied. Let's go ahead and grab that ROP.
In the meantime, we're about 200 meters from TD here on our conventional. We're moving right along here. And we have once again, a pretty good broomstick going right here. With a lot of people centered in one area and then a few people on the other side of it. So we'll switch over as soon as we're done with the star frac thing, and we'll get to see everybody cross the finish line. Look at that, Andre. Oh, I think I can find Rosie.
Yeah, so overall pretty good ROPs it looks like. So I'm coloring from 50 to 275, but most of the stages are in that yellow, green, yellow range and upwards into the red. So I think overall the ROPs are pretty high. So let's go ahead and actually model the porosities as well. So now we're going to be using the density porosity from the type well, and we're going to use the answer interpretation. We'll go ahead and model that also. So you can see we just generated a new column here. And filling this up with data, and this data can then be used for all types of neat things. I'm actually going to hop into Orange very quickly and show some distributions and some very quick calculations. But the ultimate goal of calculating these variables in StarFrac is really to use these variables as predictors for our results. So ideally production or like 12-month production or EUR, we can use these as inputs into a machine learning model alongside our other parameters such as our completion parameters, number of stage, proppant concentration, things like that. But definitely we want to stay true to the geology and to the geosteering interpretation. So the fact that we can calculate these variables so quickly is really helpful. And so we can see here, looks like the porosity ranged from about 7.5 to 13.5% across the field. And certainly this is a pretty picture, but it's kind of hard to get a good idea of you know, who placed more wells in better porosity versus not. So the next thing is, sorry, go ahead. Was there a question?
No, I'm just following along. Anybody else have a question? It sounds like a no. Keep on going, Andre.
Okay. So what we can do here is actually we'll grab all of these wells, or all of these stages actually that we've generated, and we'll go ahead and pull those in. So if we just pull up a data table, and let's make sure we update here. We can bring all of our data in. So we've got these two new fields that we've calculated. Now we can actually start to take a look at what our distribution looks like across the field. So in terms of porosity, looks like on average is around 11.3% with standard deviation of about 1.2%. So overall, pretty good. We can kind of see some of the best zones were up here. Some of the tighter zones were down around here, but really not that many wells in the tighter zones overall. Or sorry, not that many stages. Overall, very, very few stages in this tight zone, and the majority of our stages sitting, you know, at the average or better. So that's really good. Same thing with ROPs. We can see the average ROP was about 215 with standard deviation of 42 feet per hour. I assume that is. So that's pretty good. Now another thing I did here is I thought it might be interesting to see, okay, well, who managed to place the most stages in the best porosity? If we look at the well attributes, we can kind of get an idea of how many stages there were, and I think the stages should actually be pretty consistent because we didn't restrict the completions planner at all. We never excluded any stages or anything like that. So the number of stages is pretty consistent between 27 and 33 per well. But if we want to look at, you know, who actually placed the most stages in the best porosity, I'm going to connect to this Python script here, and let me just remind myself the average was 11.38. So let's go ahead and use that as our input. 11.38 was the average, and we'll go ahead and rerun this. And if we pull that into a data table, we can see here the people who placed the majority or the most of their stages within better porosity. So the top ones here, Myrov, Shade, Spare 2, Bender, Spare 1, and Spare 3. I'm not sure what the spares are, but these guys placed 32 stages in porosity better than average. So porosity better than 11.3%, which is great to see. So some nice, pretty quick analysis that we can do here, and just to kind of try to get as much out of our data as possible.
And it's just so fast is what blows my mind, right? Like, I just think about, like, if I was even to just go into a well in StarSteer and generate a dynamic log, like just one dynamic log for each log that we have in there, and just thinking of the feed that you were able to do this for basically what, 50, 52, 53 wells with robots included?
It's like 61.
61. I mean, it's just wild. And what I didn't visualize, what gets me excited about this is not only is this tool there and something that we can bring to our clients, but for the World Cup 2021, I have some ideas that we'll be looking at ROI as far as like the instead of a success factor. We'll be looking at like, yeah, we'll set some variables as far as different costs, but you'll be able to come out with, based on some assumptions, some productivity thoughts, like how good is this well actually? How do we bring all these variables together to predict who actually just drilled the best well? So I think that will be super exciting.
And that's exactly right. That's kind of what we're trying to do with StarFrac is take the kind of the very high resolution interpretation and work that we can do in StarSteer and start to expand it out to an asset scale so that we can leverage it for very many wells very, very quickly and start to build these basin-wide models for how we can expect our results to come out. These basin-wide statistical models for predicting results before they happen. And then the hope with that is that if we can do that accurately, then we can make better decisions. And so you hit the nail on the head. The speed is a big part of it. The scalability is a big part of it. This really is something that we think is unique to the market and unique to the industry. It's going to help everyone kind of level their development.
Very, very cool. Well, Andre, I know you got some other stuff that you got to jump out to. You got to show StarFrac to some actual clients here.
That's right.
I appreciate you jumping in here and kind of giving us a different way to look at the wellbore. That's awesome. And of course, Rosie's like not like a sore thumb. It almost looks like a curious caterpillar right there looking up.
The ironic thing was Rosie actually managed to place, I thought I saw here, Rosie the robot, 31 stages in above average porosity. So now whether or not you can actually get completions tools down that kind of a wellbore remains to be figured out. But it looks like overall the reservoir here is pretty good, so that might have saved her a little bit.
Hey, I think that says more about the Wolfcamp than Rosie right there.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Andre. Good luck with the rest of your endeavors here today. And we're gonna go ahead and jump back and take a look at this competition as we come into TD.
Sounds good, and good luck to everyone else for the remainder of that last well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, and let me just share my screen here. Okay, and as you guys can see, we're coming right into a photo finish here. We got basically 2 surveys out for some people, 1 more for another group, and we got a real tight bunch. And everybody seems to be of the opinion that we needed to be below grid. So same thing here. I'm in C4PO. You can see Rosie went rogue, but she's trying to come back. At least she didn't give up like she did last time, right?
That's true. Last time she was just reaching for the stars.
So, but everybody else is pretty well right up here. And C4PO, he's in the middle of the bundle.
Yeah, can we zoom out a little bit and see kind of the whole wellbore? Okay, so there was a couple there in the beginning, or I guess the first 1/3 that might have saw something a little different. And obviously,
a little bit of action that took place right down there. Let's go ahead and take a look at C4PO's image log and see if there are no image logs for this one. Makes it definitely hard
to say. I think this was just real time and gamma ray, right?
Yep. We'll go ahead and set him so that with a oh, come on, mouse. With logs. I got so much data pushing in. There we go. Resistivity and log scale. And I'll add another track here, hopefully.
So the ROP in there and kind of
try to
gamma ray, yeah.
Okay, we'll get our gamma there. And we can also get our ROP. Oof. So it looks like we got to right here that we have. So my guess is.
Yeah, that's a pretty good guess.
See how. There we go.
That's pretty fast. Yeah. Compared to everything else, that's pretty quick.
For sure. Coming into TD. And so like basically people are putting in their last surveys right now. So this is the end of the World Cup. But the winner is being decided as we speak. And this one, I feel like there's going to be a lot more cohesiveness between the scores, right? Like everybody's together.
Yeah, there's an interesting trend there at the from 2750 where half the group kind of follows the grid and half the group kind of stays below. Well, they'll be interested to see the answer. With not actually being able to see the real-time data and be able to correlate it yourself, it's all just speculation.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you want, we could set something up for you afterwards. I still have these models.
I'm okay.
Yeah, you look at the gamma ray and it's pretty steady, right? So the resistivity is key here, right? We're interpreting this bifurcation that they've got going on.
Agreed, definitely agreed. I feel like I'm one of those CNN or Fox News broadcasters speculating the election.
We will not talk about the election. No more of that conversation. I'm going to keep my job if that's okay, folks.
Yeah. All right, let's just recount the surveys.
Yep. Where's my mute button? There we go.
Right.
Okay, so everybody should. Oh, it looks like everybody should be getting their final score. So let's check out C4PO's score. Okay, he was only in zone for 20%. So like we said, he was right in the middle of the bundle. That doesn't really help him too much. Have an average ROP of 16.25 and then a success factor of 34. Now, let's zoom out a little bit here and turn on that final interpretation. Let's turn on that answer. So answer right there. So there was the actual interpretation.
I see.
All right, so only one fault this time, but it was a doozy. And C4PO basically never even tried to recover from it. This was one of those where if you got thrown, it looks like it was real difficult to determine like rapidly that you'd been thrown. So we can see there was a large group right here pushed up, and at varying times, other people started to notice. So coming into this, and it looks like I got some information coming here. Oh, it looks like we'll turn this off here just for a little bit as we see these guys coming in, because there's still a few people looks like getting their last little bit of data.
Yeah, it's interesting. It wasn't as noticeable just looking at those three logs compared to the last region that they were drilling.
Mm-hmm. Okay, looks like there's a few. There's basically one more push. So there should be one group out there. Not that they can really do too much, with the last few meters here. But I'm going to turn that score off just in case, and we'll bring that up. And then we'll be in the background here. We'll be going ahead and calculating our final score. I also wanted to thank Core Geologic for the halftime show and also just hanging out with us through this second part through Starfrac. Thanks to James and Rod for helping us out here and just being part of the show.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate it. It was pretty exciting. The second half was very exciting.
It's
thanks, guys.
We'd like to maybe, I always talk about the Marble Madness guy on YouTube. So hopefully we'll be able to put together a video where we can kind of make this whole thing, squeeze it into just a few minutes, but with some stats and a little bit of maybe some adrenaline thrown in. Be a good watch. Let's see.
Pictures of people, just some swing them in, star them out, some old school PowerPoint. Like the 1991 NFL football.
There we go, like Tecmo Bowl, Super Tecmo Bowl, I guess. Just throw it to Jerry Rice or run it with Bo. That's all I remember.
Yeah.
Okay, so that last little bit of data should be coming in here. And so the obviously we're going to be looking at a World Cup champion. but we're also going to be looking at the regional champions who are going to be getting those Apple Watches. So of course, the World Cup champion will typically is going to end up being a regional champ as well. But it'll be interesting to see for North America and Latina who's going to bring home that Apple Watch.
Now, did they get to pick the color, or is it already chosen?
I colored the people who are in the top 10, but we'll go ahead and basically once this is done in the
the Apple Watch, Dylan, the Apple Watch. Is it going to have like a Star Steer symbol on it? Is it going to be etched in the back? I'm curious.
I don't think, I think it's probably going to be straight out of the box.
Oh wow! Are we going with the pink or the midnight black or whatever they call that fancy color?
Okay, so I have my conventional statistics here. We don't have the overall winner yet. But on this one, I'm going to go ahead and turn off everybody except for the top 10 finishers here so we can look at this on the fly. So our number one overall seed coming into the semifinals, he didn't actually have the highest score here, but he was in the top 4 here. And so we'll leave him, actually, I'll turn everybody off and then just turn him back on. And we'll be looking at just the top 10 finishers here in the, we'll turn on C4PO so we can actually see the interpretation there. And then, so we have number 127, Infante. And we have Estrade, who is 128. And Mr. Pat Tobin came in 3rd in the conventional. So where are we at? Where's Tobin? Maybe I could. Where's 13? Pat Tobin right there. And we already got our semifinal leader. We had one of our mystery nights finished here with the 5th highest score here. Our mystery night was at 98. There we go. And Katrina finished 6th. So she's number 53. Go Gators. Jason Harms, number 46, got the 7th highest score here. Where are we at? Jason right there. And number 10, Imazov. Mike Boder, 122. This was definitely a race to the finish and a lot of names that we're very familiar with there. So let's see here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and Evans. So Evans was the number 1 seed for North America coming out of the semifinals, and he had the 10th highest score on this one. So Evans was number 146. Where was he at? 146, right there. Boom. Okay, so these are the best wells that were drilled here, right? And you can see that all of them, for the most part, were in zone pretty quickly. We're doing real well and recovered quickly from that fault. And, you know, other than maybe going out the top just a little bit, we're basically in zone for the rest of the well. You know, there was, you can see C4PO here. Obviously, he got up here, and like we said, he hit that shale. You saw that ROP spike, but then he spent the rest of the well below zone and was just never able to find his way back in there. So that is the World Cup competition is done. We're busy calculating the overall winners right here for each one. So there we go. And as soon as we get that information there, we'll bring it. Now, as we move into kind of like the post-game breakdown here, I'd like to thank everybody who is helping us do this. And I'd like to go ahead and also bring in Jed Adams. Now, Jed, if you're there, could you go ahead and jump in? Now, Jed runs GeoLink, and he's actually, GeoLink's hosting the post-game event. And hopefully we can get him to come in here. But let's see. I believe he's there as a panelist. He might be muted.
I think I'm here, Dylan. I think
you are here. We can hear you. How you doing, Jed?
I'm good. How is everybody? It's been quite an exciting day.
I tell you what, yeah. I mean, my co-host here yesterday, when he volunteered to is volunteer the right word?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, we lost Drew because he had some responsibilities as VP of geology that he wasn't able to get out of. So luckily, we were able to have you jump in and save the day. Now, Jed runs GeoLink. You guys are a mud logging and geosteering company, service company that works primarily in the Rockies, but also has some scoop experience and a few other basins. So with everything that's been going on in the world, how is everything working for GeoLink up there?
Well, we're doing okay. I think we're in the same basket that everybody else is. You know, it's been a tough year, but we have been able to survive and make it through the year, and hoping things look better after the new year. We'll see how it goes.
Heck yeah. Oh my goodness. So we have our final results in here. I'm going to if you guys want to just chat for just a second, I'm going to go ahead and put together the final results, and we'll bring them over here to the main screen.
Sounds good. Now, Shane, I don't believe you and I have ever met. Do you, what's your position?
Well, I previously worked for Chevron for almost the last decade. And then the last 3 years, we had worked on a geosteering team that we had created there to do all in-house geosteering. So we worked on multiple basins and whatnot. So.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously I know Dylan because of Starsteer, the Cadillac of geosteering programs.
Isn't he the connection between so many of us?
Oh, certainly is.
You guys are going to make me blush here. Let's see here. Okay, we have our final results. We have our champion as well as our regional champions. I'm just populating this PowerPoint here to make it pretty for you. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, let's see here. It looks like it. That's what we have. All right. So without that, we're just looking for final confirmation, because the last thing we want to do is, what was it? Was it Miss America or Miss Universe?
Yeah. What was his name?
Okay. All right. So in the finals, our regional champions here. I just gotta. It looks like we're confirmed. I'm gonna go ahead and bring it over. And honestly, I can't. I'm already ready for next year. I'm already revving back up here. So let's see. Come here, mouse of mine. Do a little bit of pasting. Okay, so we do have our 4 champions, it looks like here.
All right, I'm excited here.
Yep. And of course, obviously in any competition, you can only have so many winners, right? So there's
I think everybody's a winner here.
Yeah, that's it. Like if you're competing in it, you got a bit out of it. And I think you got some entertainment out of it, got to test your skills. And we appreciate every person who competed, because obviously if nobody competes, then there's no event to even talk about in the first place. So there we go. And one more. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. I'm hoping next time we'll actually have a Python script written that will populate a PowerPoint for me, so that we can
That sounds like far-fetched dreams, right?
I guess probably.
I think you guys have bigger and better things going on right now, especially with all that fracking stuff you're working on.
Yep, Star Frac. Woohoo! Yeah, we got that. There's also Solo Connect. And a bunch of other things. So anyway, I'm ready to bring this over here. I'm going to do my little slideshow and just make sure that I'm approved to present. Yeah, thinking about, what I would do if I was at like running a service company or if I was an operator, I'd like to be able to, if I could just get my hands on a little bit of data from all of the different basins. I basically just have models set up for every basin. And, this is something you can then use because we always run into problems as service companies. Like, how do we put our marketing together since we can't share our clients' data? Like, what do we do? Yeah. And this is the answer. You just get a publicly available type well for the area and you model it all. You simulate it. And then now you have everything that you can use for your marketing. And same thing if I was at an operator, like your old job there, Shane, you guys drill literally all over the earth. So you could set up a training training models for every single basin.
That would be incredibly useful tool for service companies like us.
Yeah, I think in fact maybe when we get offline here, we'll talk about trying to set that up. Maybe you and Ben can have that as something to train the next group of people that comes in.
We're always looking for something to do. That'd be a nice project for us to set up. Sometime when we're post broadcast, I need to know who told you that candy doesn't crush itself.
But I'll just say he's 350 pounds, so I think it'll narrow it down for you.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Okay, and we got one nice little graphic to throw on here. It looks like still just waiting for that final approval to be able to present. Let's see here. And then of course all the scores will be available, right? So everybody will know their rank and how they finish globally here in the finals. So that will be available for every single competitor. And I think honestly, like even if you didn't finish first, just saying that you were part of this and being able to say that you're in the top 50 steerers in the Geosteering World Cup, to me that just seems like something that would probably be something that would look pretty good on just about everybody's resume there. So absolutely. You go put this over there. And I will send it to the back. All right. Okay. All right. So I think we're ready here. I'm going to go ahead and bring this over. I am ready to announce the World Cup champion as well as the regional champions. So from current slide. Boom. Okay. So congratulations to Anton Zyabkin. I hope I pronounced that right. So he was the #1 seed in the semifinals, and he also won the unconventional. And even though he didn't have the highest score in that conventional well, he separated himself enough in that first well that people just couldn't catch up with him. Now, if I move on to the next slide here, you'll see these are our regional champions. So Robin, down at Aero Energy, brings home the regional championship for the Middle East and Australian group. In Latina, it was Andrea Infante. By being the World Cup champion, Anton is also the European champion. And longtime user and first family of Star Steer, Pat Tobin, bringing home the regional cup, I guess if you will, not cup, the regional championship for North America. I'm sure he'll have bragging rights there in his house for the next year. So thank you guys very much for everybody who joined in. We'll have everybody's scores available. Every single person will know what their rank was and their scores in both wells. So I guess any thoughts here before we kind of bring this chain finally into the station? Shane, Jed?
I'd like to congratulate everybody. Even if you didn't win your region or didn't win overall, we all know that geosteering is an art form. And, just trying this is a perfect example that you're trying to better your abilities. So
I'll second that and say congratulations to the winners, but really to everybody that competed in the World Cup this year. It says something about where their passion lies and how they're trying to pursue excellence in their career.
Absolutely. And this was a lot of fun too. Like I wish we could almost do like a little bit of a blooper reel with some of the comments and texts that I've gotten both during this event, but in between. After the first round, I had multiple people write to me asking if they could fire the geophysicist who built the structural surfaces for the semifinals. So this was a lot of fun, a lot of real familiar names, and just a great competition.
It has been a great competition, and Dylan, I'd just like to say from the GeoLink team, we appreciate the chance to participate.
Absolutely. I learned a lot. You guys are family, so I learned a lot from working with you, and obviously Shane. When I was new to Star Steer, I remember I went on my first big trip by myself out to Bakersfield, California, where there isn't a lot of geosteering going on. Oh, yeah. And I didn't know a lot of people. And then out of nowhere, I hear this voice, Shane Peterson, who is I don't know exactly what your title is, but basically social chair of the Bakersfield geologic community is what it felt like.
It's been plenty of time in the AAPG over there, so yeah, I was well known.
Yeah, absolutely well known, and really, they're in this industry, right? Like sometimes we're competitors, sometimes we work together. Everybody's got their friends, but it's always unique when somebody does something they don't have to do, right? And so Shane, he's one of those people that you always like to have around you, right? He makes your team better, and we've known each other for a little while, but he actually grabbed, I can't tell you how many people, and just brought them over to the little Star Steer booth that they had put way in the corner. Like you had to dig through about 100 pounds of fossils to even see us, and just brought person after person over. So now we have clients out there, and I'll never be able to thank Shane enough for helping me kind of get my career at Star Steer started.
Yeah, you're welcome. But I'd like to thank you for all the help that you've given us at Chevron while I was there over the years as well. So mutually respected.
Cool.
Same goes for us, Dylan. We appreciate everything you've done for us as a company as well.
Well, I guess that's the way this industry is, right? Like it's not the easiest industry to be in. So we all kind of have to take care of each other because you never know, no matter where you are, if you think you're on top, you can very easily find out that your company got acquired and you're going to be on the bottom, the next week, and vice versa. So we all got to definitely take care of each other. Now, with that said, Shane isn't with Chevron anymore, and we may even lose him from the industry here. But if anybody's looking for an elite human and an elite steerer to join their team for a little while, I would recommend reaching out to Shane.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't know if we can keep you, but we'd like to. Shane, as far as if someone wanted to reach out to you and get a hold of you, what would be the best avenue to do that?
I'm pretty actively checking LinkedIn, so you can do that. Otherwise, I think LinkedIn is probably the best way. It's just the easiest because you can find just virtually everybody on there. So
very cool. Well, we will. I guess. Hopefully we get to keep you in the industry. If not, I'm still going to come visit you in San Diego.
Oh yeah, definitely got to come to San Diego. That goes for everybody that I know on this call. If you get there, let me know. I love showing people around.
Yeah, how big's the sofa there at the place?
Oh, you'd have to get an Airbnb.
I'm too cheap for that. That's all right. I'll just sleep by the pier on Dog Beach.
That you can do that too.
It's happened before for sure. Was it 4th of July at the Marshmallow Fights? So, okay, well, I'd like to thank everybody who tuned in and spent the time to either compete or even just listen. I'd like to thank Drew Thomas for helping us in the first round, all the different people who were willing to be interviewed either in real time or recorded and played later. Of course, our development team that helped put all this together. There was an immense amount of coding and changing of coding that happened in the background. Igor, there's no way that we could have pulled this off without Igor. He was definitely the man behind the curtain. Those of you who had some problems, he was the one who was fixing things for you. Janelle Springer, she was our firefighter during the actual event. Melina and Camila working out of the Houston office, keeping everything organized, getting the graphics made. Andre for putting together his Starfrac presentation. Rafi, Luis, Will, and Eric down on the Latina team they did a lot of the legwork of as far as getting everybody's well set up, everybody's virtual project set up, making sure the visuals were set up appropriately for you. As well as our sponsors. So over at GeoVision, for being made my day yesterday, honestly, when things were getting a bit tough and a bit stressful, I saw the video of the Gatorade bath and it made my day. Jackie and Sarah, thank you guys very much. Core for sponsoring the halftime show. So Daniel and his team, James, Rod, and Howard, thank you guys for coming on and helping us fill some minutes with some entertainment and some information. Troy Tittlemeyer for giving us the overview on the Permian and the Wolf Camp from the Permian Basin experience. Appreciate him coming over. And of course, Jed and the GeoLink family for helping us close out both shows. So it takes an army sometimes. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and we look forward to seeing you again next year.
Awesome. Well, if I'm not in the industry, I'll still call on for it. Okay.
All right. Well, okay. I might take you up on that. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Thanks, Dylan.
Yes, sir.
Thanks,
Jed,
everybody.
and everybody else. Mamba out, or mine are out at least. Cheers.
You guys. Bye.
Bye.